Can you feel that? The chill. As it spreads through your body. A shiver runs up your spine as the brisk wind bites. This is no time to freeze. You stand face to face with veterans, masters of this world, champions in these conditions. Focus on your training. Use the pressure as it cracks the world around you. As the ground melts beneath you, slow your breathing. Focus your mind. The Arctic awaits.
This is ExtremeE, and the global adventure continues from Senegal in West Africa. ExtremeE moves 4,000 miles north to the dramatic landscape of the Arctic Circle. Hello, I am Jenny Gow. Alongside me in the commentary box is Andrew Coley, and down in the pit lane for us, Caroline de Moraes brings us all the interviews and all the action live from Kangerlussuaq, and a spectacular place to go racing.
Yeah, we're at the midway point in the season as we race in front of the Russell Glacier, highlighting some of the issues which are facing the Arctic, and inevitably from that, all of us. If this is your first event, this is ExtremeE.
The world's finest drivers have joined brand new teams to compete in the ExtremeE Championship. Each team will consist of one female and one male driver. The drivers will compete in X-Prix across the globe, each highlighting a specific environmental issue. An ExtremeE race consists of 2 laps. The male and female driver must complete 1 lap each. Each team has 2 hyperdrive power boosts they can activate on lap 1 and lap 2 of the race. Expect strategy and tactics. Over the course of an X-Prix, the quickest team that goes through the super sector collects a further 5 team championship points. Day 1 is qualifying and consists of 2 qualifying rounds. In each round, every team does 2 laps against the clock, with both drivers driving a lap each. In both rounds, there are qualifying points up for grabs, and this determines how they progress to Day 2, semi-finals and Crazy Race. There are also championship points to be won, with the top team in qualifying bagging 12 vital championship points, down to the last place qualifying team who walk away with just 4 championship points. Day 2 starts with the semi-finals, with the top 2 teams from each semi progressing to the final. The bottom 3 teams from Day 1's qualifying go head-to-head in the Crazy Race, the winner taking the last remaining place in the final. Grid play allows fans to vote for their favourite teams and drivers. The team that collects the most votes gets first grid position pick for the final, with the second and third teams choosing, but there is a twist. The teams who do not reach the final can still have an impact, as they can donate their votes to any team that reaches the final and influence who eventually wins the all-important grid play. The fastest 2 teams from semi-final 1 and 2 and the winner of the Crazy Race will battle it out in the 5-car final. The team that crosses the line first wins the X-Prix and claims 25 championship points, with the following teams collecting further championship points in descending order. All 5 X-Prix count towards the team's championship, and in the Drivers' Championship, competitors can drop their worst X-Prix result of the season. Who has what it takes to lift the trophy?
So there you go, that is how ExtremeE works. This is a view of the fantastic track up here in Greenland. We've had 1 qualifying session ready, we've got another one to come very shortly indeed, so let's take a look back at the action from Q1.
Veloce went first, but we're looking at JBXE, who didn't have the easiest of mornings. They went over that big rock garden, and unfortunately for them, suspension arm broke, and that was the end of their drive.
Yeah, game over. A much better result for Jutta Kleinschmidt and Matthias Ekstrom at Cupra. They were quickest yesterday in free practice, and they were quickest again in Q1. Not so much, though, for championship leaders RXR. Molly Taylor with this roll, and Kristoffersen had already stopped 3 times by this point, Jenny. Disaster for them.
Yeah, look inside the car at the roll. I mean, Molly Taylor made it look like water up a duck's back, but I can tell you, if any of us were in that car, it would have shake, rattled and rolled us to the very core.
This was Kyle Leduc having a huge moment at the exact same place. We've seen drivers taking it a little bit steadier since then. Leduc got away with it where Molly Taylor didn't. He was fastest and actually got the super sector time at this point and then clipped that flag. And the 10-second penalty meant they had to give up the fastest time to these guys.
Yep, Sebastian Loeb and Cristina Gutierrez looking really smooth out there, even through the rocky garden. And they set the fastest time of the morning to take them to be in lead position at the end of qualifying 1.
Timmy Hansen was on an absolute flyer. He was pushing so hard. He actually managed to beat Kyle Leduc's time in the super sector. He came in some 10-15 seconds up, looking on for the fastest time. They hit the brakes hard on the way into the speed limit for the switch zone, and the car shut down. Disappointment for Hansen and also for Munnings, who was waiting at that change zone. She jumped in the car. Brilliant job by her under a lot of pressure on the second lap.
Yeah, she did a good recovery drive. You can see the concentration on her face. She knew she couldn't battle to be in #1 position, but she just had to get the car safely round. And that's exactly what she did for Andretti United. So really nice drive from them. And then last up, it was the turn of the Acciona Sainz pair of Carlos Sainz and Lea Sanz. And Carlos Sainz showing that he has not lost a jot of his talent. He was storming out there. They had a problem in the changeover switch zone for them. That didn't help, but they put a good time on the board. Let's see what they can all do in qualifying 2, because that comes up very shortly.
Well, top of the table at the moment, as you've seen, are the X44 squad. Great job by them here in Greenland, and it's been a good season so far.
X44, founded by Lewis Hamilton, has one of the strongest driver pairings on the grid, with Cristina Gutierrez, the second woman in history to win a stage of the Dakar Rally, alongside 9-time World Rally champion Sebastian Loeb. Arriving in Saudi Arabia, they hit the ground running and qualified in first place. Day 2 saw them line up for the first wheel-to-wheel racing action, and after a hard-fought semi-final, they slotted into second place, securing a spot in the final. Loeb lined up against the 2019 World Rallycross champion Timmy Hansen and the reigning World Rallycross champion Johan Kristoffersen. Unfortunately for Seb, his competition was the least of his problems.
I think Loeb's got some sort of an issue there. He was really struggling.
No power steering, no power steering.
Despite that bad luck, it was a great opening weekend for the team, and momentum was on their side as they took to the beaches of Senegal. They put together some excellent laps under pressure to secure the best time overall in qualifying and even more championship points. In the semi-final, after a tough start, they entered the switch zone in third place, but a communication error for the Abt Cooper team during the driver switch saw them take second place. Cristina was all over Molly Taylor, but wasn't able to take the lead and crossed the line in second, meaning they would go head-to-head once again in the final. After a quick start off the line, Cristina and her rival Molly Taylor were neck and neck going into the first turn.
This is a real good battle between the two of them, because they're not having to take the line they wanted to. Oh, disaster there for the Hamilton car. It's been pushed out really wide, lost so much time.
I come over, guys, sorry.
With damage after the contact with RXR, meaning they couldn't continue, they finished 4th overall. It was another disappointing end for the team, but with 2 qualifying wins and 2 trips to the final in the opening rounds, they've secured a strong points haul and a second in the championship. Will they continue their success in the Arctic X-Prix?
Well, at the minute, they are continuing that success, aren't they? They're top of the table after Q1. This, of course, is the championship standings. Rosberg X Racing were 14 points clear of X44, but RXR have had an absolute disaster this morning, and X44 are where they've been all year, top of the pile, with 1 qualifying session left to go in Greenland.
Well, we are ready to go with round 2 of qualifying for the Arctic X-Prix. 7 degrees, so the temperature vastly different from the first 2 rounds. And there's a lot to be excited about. Points up for grabs, places up for grabs as well, to decide which of the semi-finals you get to go into. So let's get our eyes down and focus as we bring you all the action.
Veloce Racing got Q2 underway. Stefan Sarazan at the wheel, reaches down to the dash and gets the car all set up. But by the time he reached the first corner, unfortunately, power steering broken. And you could see there the car facing the wrong direction. He heads back towards the track to make it through the waypoint. But he already knows that he's struggling. Stops the car up by the lake, tries an electric reset on the machine, which has sometimes worked, but he realised very quickly, was on the radio back to the team saying, the electric reset hasn't fixed it, this is mechanical steering. So unfortunately, whilst the wheels are facing in the right direction with no power assistance on the Veloce machine, it was going to be a wrestling match for the entire 8.6 kilometres for both Sarazan and then for Emma Gilmore as well. Emma in this weekend, because Jamie Chadwick is competing in W Series for Veloce at Spa-Francorchamps. Wet conditions there. I don't know which one you'd pick, really. Pouring rain at Spa-Francorchamps or broken power steering up here. Look at Emma Gilmore gritting her teeth. Just such hard work. You need to be supremely physically fit to drive these race cars flat out anyway, but to drive them without power steering is an extra workout for anyone. And both Sarazan and Gilmore doing a great job to bring the car back to the finish. Sarazan simply said, it's the race. But they won't be happy with that. A little bit of work to do, and they'll have to see where they qualify later on today. Can they make up for it in the semi-finals tomorrow?
Well, let's get our racing on again. It's qualifying and the second part of it, and you can see deep concentration from Michaela Kottulinsky. She's in the command centre. Kevin Hansen will take the start line for Jenson Button's ExtremeE team. And off he goes. So the car digs down into the sand and away from the start line towards waypoint 1. Kevin Hansen, such a safe pair of hands when it comes to this team, taking over from Jenson Button after the first event and doing a really good job. But look at the car kicking around. Just looks like it's fun, but I mean, high risk, isn't it, for these cars? They're bouncing all over the place, and we know some of these ridges are digging up, some of the bounces, some of the dunes, very difficult to handle.
For me, these guys need to take a risk. They were P9 in the first session, so really they've got nothing to lose. This goes one of two ways. Obviously, you don't want to crash. If they have another mechanical issue, they broke the steering in the first one after the car had stopped as well. Okay, you end up P9, so what? You know, it's the same position you're in now, reset overnight and try to win the crazy race and make it through to the final. On the other hand, a really good time here could see you catapulted up, right up the standings. So if they could go P1, P2, P3 in this session, they could get themselves into one of the first 2 semi-finals, which doubles their chances of a slot in the final. So I think go for it, because why not? You're in P9 at the minute. If you end up P9, you know, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Yeah, absolutely. Fastest at the moment, that's what you would expect. The suspension break earlier on in qualifying round 1 meant they didn't set a time on the clock, as you say. So a lot to make up for Hansen as he goes around this 8.6 kilometre track. Michaela just watching on with Jenson Button to the right of her. There's nothing she can do right now, and you can see so close to the waypoint flag. And just to let you know that the Veloce team did actually pick up some time penalties as well, so we'll have a look into those in just a moment and update you. But the Veloce thought they hadn't had a great session, and then things got even worse for them. But you can see Hansen, Kottulinsky making time, doing a good job. 35 seconds. They need to stretch this out and keep on challenging and pushing. They know faster cars are coming.
Good season for Kevin Hansen so far in the World Rallycross Championship. He won the first round in Barcelona, P2 in Sweden to his brother Timmy. So he'll be feeling full of confidence, and it must be nice for him to be back in the car as well. We weren't really sure what his status was within the team, were we, at the last event? It was standing in for Jenson. Interesting that Jenson is now here very much in team manager role. It makes you wonder, is he happy to step aside and go, you know what, Kevin, you do the driving, I'm going to be here guiding the team a bit. And on the other hand, of course, if Kevin's not available, if he's got a clashing commitment, Jenson could jump back in and have another crack at it as well. It's only year 1, isn't it? I'll be interested to see who's going to get The driver market, actually, I mean, you know, seems early to call silly season, but it's not really. We're at the midway point, and it is late in the year because all these championships have started so late. We're at the point now, it's only a few months to next year, or we've already seen Timmy Hansen and Katie Munnings signed up. Why wouldn't you start signing drivers now?
Yeah, so the Andretti United team for 2022 were actually announced this week coming into the race. So you can see that, as you say, people starting to do their deals, conversations starting to happen ahead of next year. And Kevin Hansen doing a cracking job and demonstrating to everybody that, hey, you might want me in your team next year, but will Jenson Button go to strike early and secure him for them next year? Let's wait and see, but really good job at the moment. 1:28 faster than the Veloce team, which you would expect. They had those issues, they had to do the reset, and it was a very painful session for them without power steering, but at the moment, things for Kevin Hansen looking pretty good. That's the first dust section, the dune section and the sand over and done with. Now they're into the dry gravel beds with the river where it would have been, and they're flipping up stones left, right and centre, hopping the car around.
Kevin's trying really hard here, Jenny. You can see the rear end of the car kicked up really high, that put the nose down into the ground. There were actually rocks flying from the back of the car over the front, which is always a sign you're trying really hard. Obviously, they're going fast. It's a minute 30 up. It's not too tricky, is it, against a Veloce car with broken power steering? The time is only in reference to this session. But Michaela Kottulinsky's got to get in the car now. Actually, as well, don't forget, Kevin didn't even get a lap this morning.
No.
So this is his out lap. Yeah, well, okay, practice yesterday. They had one going free practice.
Yeah, and he's showing how adept he is at just being able to get shoved into a car and go for it. You can see the aggression that he's using, and he will have studied everybody's runs this morning. He would have had a good look at it, and now he uses his hyperdrive. Interesting, they're using it in a slightly different area, but you can see the pace advantage all of a sudden that he has, and he'll use that to slingshot up the jump. He's using it in the super sector, so if you're using it that early, it's aiming for the super sector, which might explain why he was trying so hard off those various jumps and crests and so on. We'll find out whether or not that super sector is across all sessions. And when we spoke to Kyle LeDuc earlier on today on air, he said, I think the track's going to cut up and that will get increasingly difficult. It's 5 championship points. It's a lot of points, isn't it, for one sector on one lap. Clever move by them to try and do it early, and whether or not anybody's going to be able to respond is yet to be seen. Yeah, I think Hansen's just got to keep on gunning it, hasn't he? And Kottulinsky's got to do it. She really impressed me this morning, so she's got to do the same again and put in a really fast time as well. You can just see the chevron marker telling them which way to go as they head down towards the water, the river there, and then through the rock garden, which did for their car last time out. So it'll be interesting. They had a puncture and then they had the steering brake. So interesting to see if Kevin just tackles it any more gently. Well, we're about to find out. Here we go. Kevin Hansen coming up to the rock garden right now. Comes up to it, brakes fairly hard, gets it nice and straight through there. Yeah, no problem at all. So tidily done. Slightly straighter as well, I think, that the route through for them this time, rather than trying to take it on its side slightly, which is far more jeopardy to it. So past waypoint 30, past the start line finish, where they'll go next time round, and heading down this long drag towards the area where they'll do the switch. Even longer drag now, though, isn't it, down to into the actual switch zone? It's no. This is the same issue they had last time. Unreal. No, this is the same issue that his brother had in the Andretti United team. So Kevin Hansen coming in, pulls on the anchors, and unfortunately, car's stopped. He gets it. Just tilt over. Look at Michaela Kottulinsky, she's laughing. He got it restarted fast. Yeah. Still 20 seconds lost. I mean, I agree, he did. It was a great, that's the kind of reset you want. Interesting, I'm sure the radio said P2 and into drive, so they've obviously found a way to do it as quickly as they can, but so both Kristoffersen and both the Hansens now have had an issue with the reset when they've jumped on the brakes. So there's obviously some sort of fault going on, which, yeah, they'll all be keen to find. Yep, absolutely. So, carry on into the switch zone. Take the chevrons to the right. Pull into the right bay. That's an important one as well. And your teammate, Michaela Kottulinsky, will be waiting for you. They'll do the switch. Kevin coming out. Let's have a listen. So you can see Kottulinsky's got her insert. So as Kevin comes out, she'll slot that in. Okay.
Took a little while to get that in, didn't it? The seat insert. Kevin's going to reach in and help with the belts. Swedish, unfortunately, for the feedback.
Yeah, but he was at least trying to give her some information. We can't understand it because neither of us speaks Swedish.
No.
Oh, I thought you were going to blow me away and impress me and then to go, well, actually, I do.
No, we had some text messages about some Swedish earlier on today, but we don't speak enough Swedish to know exactly what the feedback was there.
Thank goodness.
Look how quickly that was done, Jenny. You know, we saw earlier on issues for Acciona Sainz trying to get the changeover done quickly, and they didn't manage it. But even with the little delay getting the seat insert in, I think it's clear that the JBXE squad have managed to get a really quick changeover done then.
Yeah, that was impressive. They were really slick about that. So Michaela at the wheel now.
So Michaela, 1 minute and 20 up. So remember, they're going to gain time on both runs here because poor Stefan Sarazan and Emma Gilmore had to do the whole run without any power steering. So they will continue to gain that time. And as I say that, Michaela runs very wide in that corner.
She missed the waypoint.
I don't think so, but
No.
it was surprisingly deep.
It's fine, it's just very wide, isn't it, compared to some of the other points. This is where we've had a few thrills and spills so far. Molly Taylor earlier did a double jump there, rolled the car 360, carried on. We also saw Kyle Leduc having issues there, but Arlen Kottulinsky just very safely handling that car through that section. She just wants to keep her foot in. You can see there our 4-angle split screen really gives you an idea of exactly what Michaela is going through in that car. The hands crossing, almost crossing that point of no return, really, so tight. And then she'll come round into the chicane, hard left. Oh, and you can really see the car kicking out. She's fighting it, even though she's got power steering. So just imagine the job that Emma Gilmore had to do as they go up into this very thin, narrow section, which is rutting heavily as well as they go through these qualifying sessions. Down the hill, kicking up all that loose sand. Lovely stuff from her.
Back to 1 minute and 30 in front now. That's what Kevin came in on before they had the little issue and lost 20 seconds or so. I mean, if Kevin gained 1 minute 30, you'd like to think that Michaela could probably gain another minute again on this second lap. But then I guess, you know, everybody else is going to be looking for a clean run, aren't they? And they'll be hoping to get past them, trying to see... Well, of course, they were P9 last time. I mean, yeah. Well, they're not going to be P9, are they? They're going to beat Veloce.
Yes, that's true. That's very true. Good for them.
They've
Hurrah.
got to look on the bright. They've got to look on the
And I
right
tell you
side.
what, all is not lost because,
No.
okay, all of the points that they gained today, which are, they're like the intermediate points for this, for qualifying. There are championship points at stake as well, but if you get your points up and you do a decent job, you go through into a decent semi-final, and even if you only go through into the crazy race, now the way that the championship runs, there is a route through from the crazy race to the final. So I don't think any of the teams need to be too despondent at the moment if they haven't had a blitzing day today.
You'd be feeling very different about a bad day here than you would have been about a bad day in Senegal or Saudi Arabia, wouldn't you? Sideways from Arlen Kottulinsky at the bottom of the hill. Coming down onto the gravel section now, she's got the very fast run down to the hairpin right in front of the glacier. Watch for her being nice and late on the brakes here. You want one long braking zone and then get the car turned in while the weight's over the nose. Here she comes, on board. There are those little corrections that we were talking about earlier on, which are so difficult when you don't have the power steering. Just loads of tiny little inputs, which she's making the whole time to keep the car straight. It's obvious, isn't it, in the corners that there's a lot of steering input, but I think it's not so obvious the amount of steering input there is when you're in a straight line, particularly in, driving on loose surfaces. You're constantly correcting the car.
Yeah. Right, across the riverbed section, dipping up and down. She'll come up to gate 18 in a moment, which is one of the gates. You get a stunning view of the Russell Glacier in the background as you dump all the way up and then jump down. The impact on these drivers is quite aggressive. There she goes, down. Nice absorption from that car. Almost 2 tons of it. And remember, Michaela came to this, she was actually the ExtremeE Continental test driver. So she's got a lot of experience, but I doubt she's ever dealt or tackled anything like this before, even in that role.
No, they did some testing in the south of France at Château de las Tours, which is a famous... sounds nice. And it's actually incredibly rocky, rough roads, which the WRC teams used to use for safari testing. So it's a really rough test venue. And obviously the idea of that is to do your best to break the car or to have punctures, because that's what you're testing for.
It's a shame. They've done a really good job of that so far this weekend.
They wanted to do it pre-season. Yeah. Not quite according to plan. But yeah, so yes, she was involved in a lot of the testing, and actually both the Hansen brothers were involved a little bit in that test program as well. Worth mentioning too, there's a rookie test coming up after Sardinia. So each of the teams is going to be able to nominate a male and a female driver that they would like to try in the car. They'll come along for the whole weekend, follow the teams around, get a feel for what happens in ExtremeE, and then there'll be some testing and then actually a timed run as well. So we're going to see potentially 18 new drivers try these cars. I might be waiting for the rookie test before I start signing anybody up, you know?
I'm so excited about that rookie
me
test.
too.
They've cast their net far and wide. They've just said to a driver, if you are interested, send your CV to an email address and we'll look through them, and each team will get to have a male and female driver to go in there.
So what about you and me, Jenny? You reckon?
Do you really need that slow person like me alongside you? I think you can do better for yourself.
We're a team.
Well,
Come on, we'll give it a whirl.
I don't think anybody needs that sort of...
Well, I'll tell you what, me and Jenny, we'll say this to the championship, me and Jenny want to come to the pre-season test next year. We want to drive the car.
Oh,
there you
yes!
go. So we're
Sign me
going
up
to go.
for that.
We'll go and lay down a lap time at the pre-season test each. We'll see how we get on. And if we're any good, then we'll get signed up and you have to get someone else to do the commentary.
Worth noting, it's not a young driver. Oh, my goodness, did you see the rock that Michaela Kottulinsky clattered into there? That wouldn't have been ideal. I just wondered if there's any damage to the floor. That was a huge rock. Wowee, they are giving this car everything to tackle, but look, she comes into the finishing line, she sets the fastest time, she's 1 minute 40 faster than anybody else, but that's the first representative time we've had. Congratulations to JBXE.
15 seconds, 15 seconds.
Next car on the grid and ready to go. Well, that's Jutta Kleinschmidt putting her balaclava on, because down in the car is Matthias Ekstrom. Slight technical problem for Ollie Bennett, meaning their run wasn't completed. So now we see off the line Matthias Ekstrom. They were P2 in that first session. And how far behind were they? They were 3 seconds off the leaders X44. The fastest time actually in that first session, if you remember, was SEGI Chip Ganassi Racing. They got a 10-second penalty. So the three cars right up there. Ekstrom going a little bit quicker at the moment. We'd expect that, really. The teams that have gone so far haven't been on the pace that Abt Cupra have. They've been on fire this weekend.
Yeah, they've looked so impressive and really got their act together when it comes to working as a team. Remember, this is a relatively new duo of drivers, with Kleinschmidt stepping in at the last minute last time out, so now she's got the seat permanently. So it's Kleinschmidt and Ekstrom, as you say, and Ekstrom showing us what he can do. The tricky turns between gate 3 and 4, where we've seen some of the cars really struggling. They've taken the jumps, and you can see a lot of jumping there. I'd like to see the external footage of that to see just how dodgy that was, but it looked like a big moment for Matthias Ekstrom at the same jumps that we've seen someone like Molly Taylor previously for XRX losing the car.
Yeah, a roll there, wasn't it, for Molly? They posted that on Instagram, lots of replies for it too. Ekstrom's on a big push, isn't he? So 1.59 up, not massively up on the timesheets, funnily enough. It would be against Kevin Hansen, wouldn't it, who was on his first run.
Who looked good, actually.
Yeah, he did, yeah. So I think that's a good sign that the JBXE squad has got the pace. They've just got to get a clean run in. But Ekstrom launching it off. The first person we saw really launch it off, that was Christopherson, wasn't it, in Q1? Look how deep this is now. It's actually getting to the point where the road is lower than it was when we started. It's down almost below the level of the undergrowth.
You can just about actually see the car from some of those shots, can't you? It's so low now.
Timmy Hansen sent a message to me a few minutes ago saying about the ruts and how you can use the ruts to help the car go through. And I think we saw there a really good impression of that from Matthias Ekstrom. Again, down this section here, we did see Sarah Price, and that's exactly what Sarah Price did. And there we are talking about how you can use the ruts. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out. You lean on them too much, they collapse, and you run wide.
Yes.
No time lost, though, really.
Yeah, just it looks a little ragged, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not as smooth as I'd like, but certainly Ekstrom is wringing the neck of his Odyssey 21, really wanting to get the most out of it and put together a decent time. And yeah, it's putting some real aggression in.
Yeah, that's a better impression there, Jenny. Did you see how hard he used the bank on the outside? He literally used the bank to turn the car in. So you're just leaning on it and knowing that the car will not ride up it too high and that it's definitely going to turn in. As long as you're confident you're not going to knock the tyre off the rim, you're absolutely fine. These are bead lock rims, meaning that the side of the tyre is actually locked into the rim. They bolt it in tight, so that gives you a much better chance of not rolling the tyre off the side of the rim.
Always useful. Right, down off the sand into the gravel section. You can see the lighting difference now out in Greenland. And the sun shining earlier on, then we had a little bit of rain. The sun's come back out as they go. It's 100 kilometers an hour past the glacier. The Russell Glacier will be in the background in just a moment. And I don't think this is as smooth from Matthias as I would have hoped he could do.
I'm interested that he was faster before. He's losing time now, so he was 2.6, it's now 3.7. He's lost 1.1 seconds in that last sector. Let's just keep an eye on it and see through the course of the lap. It may also be that Matthias is taking the view, look, we were P2 in Q1. There is no need to take any risk because all the other people who have gone so far are so far behind us in the standings now that it doesn't matter. So he's pretty, to be fair, with the issues that the other drivers have had in Q2, actually, Ekstrom's guaranteed a spot, isn't he, pretty much in the top 2 semi-finals. They've just got to get it round. Not what he wants. He'll want to go top qualifier, more championship points, but you've got to start thinking about the long game now. If you're looking at it and going, are people, you know, is this course really hard? Do people need to take it a bit easier?
Yeah, but the way I read it and the way I look at it is that he's not taking it particularly easy. He's still wringing the neck from the car. It's just that he's not getting the performance that maybe I was expecting for him to be able to deliver. Still losing some time on the riverbed section as well.
I agree, and I think the best indicator of that, Jenny, will be this long flat section. So at the moment, he could, you see what I mean? He could be taking the crests or the dips a little easier. Once you get on the long flat section, there is nothing there why the car shouldn't be doing the same speed as somebody else. So if he continues to lose time at this point, then I think you say, okay, he's probably got an issue.
Okay, that's fair enough. Well, let's see what he does. This is around hyperdrive area. This is the moment that some of the teams have been choosing to use it. Some a little later on. Nice jump up. Actually, that wasn't as high a jump as that we've seen from others. So maybe you're right. Maybe he's dialed it back a little bit, just going on a safety mode. Maybe he knows they've done enough.
Like I said, Ekstrom's so calculating. He's so calculating. It'd be like, how can we get the most points? In comes the hyperdrive now. You can see the difference in the attitude of the car, can't you? Immediately they start using the extra boosted power.
It's a great long shot, isn't it? You can just see the dust kicking up from that gravel, dry riverbed there. A huge expanse for people to go out and be able to play with these cars, and what an honour to be able to do that, just to go out there and have a little bit of fun with the App Cooper. And you can see the team there looking on, trying to help.
First ever motorsport event in Greenland.
Yeah.
It's mad, isn't it? You know, most of the places we go, we're lucky enough to have travelled with our jobs, and I'm very grateful for that. But it's very rare that I think I've ever done any kind of an event where you go, this is the first time there's ever been a race in this country of any kind. You know, there's not been rally cross, certainly no F1. But it's the first time they've held a motorsport event. There's that huge rock. Sorry, Jenny. He almost, I'm not sure if there was a deflection or not, under the front right, which we saw for Michaela Kottulinsky when she came in with JBXE, and actually she pulled the car up after the finish line, we think with broken front right suspension. Ekstrom's not going as quickly, is he?
Yeah, it's down on its haunches. You can see at the rear end of it that it doesn't look too healthy. I just wonder if they've got a puncture at the back of that. Now, the teams are in the switch zone. The teams are able to put in a new tyre. So if it's left rear, then they will be able to put it up on a jack and replace it. Hopefully, they've bought their spare.
It's the time lost. 12.9 seconds they were up. Matthias will know now that the rear left is down. I think it's only him and one of the mechanics that can work on it. So at this point, if I were them, I would get Yuta to get in the car and get on with her belts herself, because you're going to take longer than 45 anyway, and crack on with the wheel change as much as you can.
This will be interesting to see what a pit stop time is, because it's not something that we see in ExtremeE. It's not meant to happen. So how quickly can they get this up on a jack and get that Continental tyre off? Oh.
Has he done the rear right as well? I think it's the rear right as well. Is it? Come on, we need to see. I can't, because the dirt is so hard to tell.
Find out now.
Okay, so let's have a look and see what they go to do. The rear left is definitely down. Has he gone to the back? They may jack the whole of the rear. Yeah, they're going to jack the whole of the rear of the car at once. And they're going to do exactly what we suggested. So they can't get the jack underneath because... so this is a typical Dakar problem. This is where you need sand ladders to try to get in. He's managed to get the wheel nuts off. They've got a tray there that's to stop the wheel nuts.
He's struggling to get the wheel nuts off. He's had to go back to the mechanic. The other mechanic isn't allowed actually to come into the change zone. So they've got to raise it. One jack onto the back, one jack on the left to raise the whole thing.
It's some sort of quick lift device they've managed to get underneath the side as well. You can see that they're using now.
It's got to be strong.
Interesting. It's not a hydraulic, is it? They've used. I think they're using a wheel nut gun. Yes, they are. Kevin Hansen talking about it because Kevin yesterday had to change his wheel, and you saw him drop the wheel nuts and drop them into the dust. If you look, I think you'll find he's using a nut gun to power the jack device, which is lifting it up. It's now a question of whether they're changing one or two wheels.
I think they've only got one spare down there. That's the problem. So
someone might be running back now, but it was very hard to tell.
Just roll it. Have you done a roll?
No, the rim's damaged.
Oh, they've got two.
Yeah, the rim's damaged on the inside, so you can actually see that the rim was dented, and that's so it's not so much a puncture as you bend the rim and then the tyre is unable to hold the air.
Yeah. So let's have a replay of exactly what happened. So this is going through the rock garden. We've seen a few different cars injured through this section, and you can see at that moment...
Rear left's already flat.
Yeah.
The rear left was already flat, and the rear right was done on the big rock, which we saw Michaela Kottulinsky hit. He missed it with the front right, but the rear right got it. So double puncture, but the rear left was already down when they got to the rock garden. It's very strange because the RPM, the centrifugal force on the tyre, there you go, that's damaged as well. So he's bent the rim, so the tyre, the Continental tyres are brilliant and have stood up, but unfortunately the dented rims mean no air inside them.
Jutta Kleinsmith in the car. She's ready to go. The car is not ready, that is for sure. So they need to do a double change here. So you could see the damage to the rear of that car, and you can actually see the under tray has taken the impact as well. So it's come down really hard. That's why they've got to change both. And if you're thinking that it's tough being a racing driver, you're thinking it's pretty tough being an ExtremeE driver, these guys actually have to be multi-talented, and now they are a mechanic as well, and he is going to have to wheel the car in. They've got the other jack now. They'll raise the car up to try and...
Here's that device, Jenny. Look how cool it is. Kevin loved it, didn't he? Because Kevin yesterday was having to do the hydraulic jack. He's thinking, hang on a minute, we could have one of those. That looks much easier. Look how much faster it is.
You know, development when it comes to technology and equipment around the car is, oh, I can't get it off. That's frustrating. It's bent on. This is like a Bottas F1 in Monaco.
I think Matthias even laughed himself there.
Oh, no.
So a good tip here, if you can't get the rim off, is to use the other wheel to hit it with. So you take this big wheel here and you swing it into the rim. But that's on a road car when you can pick the wheel and tyre up. This won't be so easy. If the two of them took a side each, Ekstrom's going to go underneath and try to kick the rim off from the back.
This is high stakes. I know what they've done with Jutta to get her in the car, and I agree that was a sensible approach, but right now...
Can't help thinking it'd be best if she was out there helping them with the mechanics. And she would be very capable because of the Dakar experience. You cannot do the Dakar if you don't have some understanding of the mechanics of it.
Go on, my lad. Give it a good whack. You can do it. It's bent on to the side, isn't it? Frustrating times for Ekstrom. It looked like a really good run and the first clean run we were going to have.
He's putting the rim back on, so they've decided they can't get it off, so they've got two choices now. You retire the car at this point, but Ekstrom is putting the wheel nuts back on, and it may be that they say to Jutta, you've got a rear right puncture, there's nothing we can do about it, we can't change it, drive on it. Wowzers.
That's drastic, isn't it?
Well, as we said earlier, though, a bad time is better than a DNF. You just drag it round. When we've seen people, lots of people have had issues, get the time in, you might end up third at this rate. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose they can give it a go. They can give it a go, start the car and actually see how bad it is, because until you've actually got out there, you don't know. Right, so Jack's being released now with that very clever trick. I like that. Although it looks like it's digging into the sand, which is less than ideal.
I think he's just lost the nut gun into the sand next to the car.
Oh, golly gosh, it's just like nothing's going to go right this afternoon.
Door is open. Are they deciding to retire the car?
They hadn't closed the door, I don't think.
It was closed a minute ago when we looked at the onboard of Yuta, but
I'm sure she's getting a little fresh air.
That's our camera person. Yeah, Yuta's out the car. Well, that's a real shame. They were on for a good time, and it looked like one puncture just before the rock garden and then a double puncture. We don't know how long Ekstrom was carrying it for because he wasn't as quick as we thought he could be. But there we go. The run's over for ExtremeE. We're going to take a look at a lovely drone shot here of Kevin Hansen in the beautiful backdrop of Greenland. Constant shot the entire way through. You just don't get this, do you? We're so lucky to have such fantastic venues, but also to have the use of these drones to be able to follow the car. It gives you an idea of the vastness, I think, of the venue, and also a completely different look at the track.
Yeah, technology has come on at every level, but drone work is one of the most impressive, I think. And when you actually see them in location flying, the guys that are flying them, it's just awesome. And flying himself, Kevin Hansen in the JBXE team, you can see the number 22 atop of the car. That drone shot shows that very nicely. That, of course, Jenson Button's racing number when he was in Formula 1. When he was in karting, he had 22 as well. And the 22 carries on to XE as well.
Could see here the elevation change. I think that's one of the things that we always say. I know we always say it. You can't see the elevation on television, but certainly you could see how steep that climb is from the valley floor up, then past the lake, and they climb again, in fact, before the long drop back down towards the hairpin on the other side. This is the narrow section. The banks either side here, left and right, there is more earth and undergrowth in it, meaning you can lean on the banks a little bit more. We saw Ekstrom doing that on his run. He wasn't too concerned about running a wheel up against the edge of it. We also saw, of course, that flag there is the one which Emma Gilmore took down in the Veloce Racing machine. Look at the ruts, though, as well. The track conditions changing constantly. More climbing, look, and now the drop.
If you look over to the left in that shot especially, you can see the glacier. It's the Russell Glacier, and that little basin there is where it would have been in the past. It's shrinking at a rapid rate. If you want to find out more details, there's plenty more about the changes that are happening in Greenland and all of the changes that we're hoping to make happen as well while we're out there. But what a stunning shot it is that you can see.
Down now onto the flat gravel base, and this is where the glacier used to be. We're actually racing on land which was covered by the glacier, down towards the hairpin at the far end. There are undulations here, and you can particularly see some in the braking zone there for the long open hairpin right that Kevin's turning into now. But you can see it's a much smoother, flatter prospect. And this is where the drivers are able to really push. It's why we think there are lots of places they could use hyperdrive, and potentially lots of places they could pass. Yeah,
for the racing, when it comes to 5 cars on here tomorrow for the final, just look at the expanse, look at the options, look at the angle of that JBXE car as well, with Kevin really wringing the neck out of it and getting some serious front angle. That was where we were on board last time, and we saw the stones coming up from the back of the car and over the front of the windscreen. So yes, Kevin on a big push. The drop-off, that's actually the start there of the super sector. We've seen some people use hyperdrive down here to try to win the super sector, and then there's a long flat run up to the finish. But what an absolutely brilliant piece of camera work by one of our drone guys. A great drive from Kevin Hansen.
15 seconds, 15 seconds.
So 15 seconds, if you're expecting to see the Rosberg car, they are taking a little extra time to fix it. So it'll be Chip Ganassi taking to the start line. And there we can see the Segi TV car ready to go. And away we are with the Chip Ganassi team. A solid performance from them earlier on. Kyle almost lost it, but managed to hold on to that bucking Bronco of an Odyssey 21, and you can see already very light on its feet. We had the pleasure of Kyle joining us in the commentary box earlier on. These two are such great representatives for ExtremeE. They love it. They love what they're doing. They're enjoying their time out there, and they are showing us what you can do with an Odyssey 21.
They are indeed. We've seen incredible flashes of pace from both Sarah Price and Kyle Leduc. Of course, Kyle Leduc won the super sector last time out in Senegal. It's no holds barred. He lost the super sector in the last run to Timmy Hansen. Timmy went just half a second quicker than him. Not sure. Kyle hinted, didn't he, that he felt track conditions meant it wouldn't necessarily be possible. Oh, and the fender's off the rear of the car now.
Oops.
And he's broken it. So something has collapsed at the rear of the car, I think, and pushed the back corner off. And there it is. Rear left suspension has completely collapsed. And the back corner is off the car. And there was nothing that I saw there that was too untoward. I mean, we'll see red flag. And a shake of the head from Kyle LeDuc. What do they need to do to get a change of luck?
So red flag here. You can see Sarah Price in the command centre looking on the stricken Segi TV Chip Ganassi car. And that is the June run that we've seen cause so many problems. Molly Taylor rolling earlier on today. It was Kyle LeDuc who really had to rein in that car again when he went over it last time. Nice to see a little replay of what happened, but you can just see Kyle LeDuc in the car.
So we had a look back on board as he came over a couple of those crests, and the bodywork just suddenly appeared. The rear quarter, the rear fender, depends where you live as to what you want to call it. The rear wing, in fact, it was the bodywork just appeared, and I guessed something must have fired the bodywork off on the other side. I wasn't expecting the rear corner to be completely at 90 degrees. Here we go. So having a look on board, watching the background. So does he come sideways over anything, up and over the crest? Not particularly anything there untoward. Coming up now towards the crest. So we were riding on board looking back. Gone. He's broken already. It was broken on the first hit. The rear left was at a funny angle. Then when it landed, the wheel was already at an angle, and that will have ripped the suspension off. So it was only actually out by about 10, 20 degrees, the rear left, when we saw it come over that first shot. So here we go. Now watch here and see. Boom.
Oh, yeah. Wow, it just rips off the whole rear end.
Once you think about the forces involved at that speed with just a tiny angle, and now, of course, I mean, the wheel's now at 90 degrees, but it's already well off by there. So I think one of the links has broken, which has allowed the toe to go out, to toe out, and then it's literally just ripped the whole rear corner off the car. So that's not great. I'm gutted for them as well. I really am. It feels like they can't get a change of luck, doesn't it? It really, like, you look at the Kyle LeDuc. He knew that wasn't his fault. He knows that when we spoke to him earlier, and he said, I've made a couple of mistakes that are on me, and that's not the way I want to do this program. He's referring there to the crash and shakedown in Saudi. And there was another crash as well, wasn't there, later with Claudia Hurtgen? But yeah, that's not his fault, Jenny. No way.
No, they had this freak incident as well in Senegal where a loop came out and stopped the car. Let's hear from Sarah Price.
I'm with Ganassi's Sarah Price. Sarah, yes, what's gone wrong?
As far as we know, it's just a part failure on the rear end of the car. We don't know specifically what yet, so we're just going to take it back to the garage and do what we're used to doing in off-road and figure it out and fix it.
Did Kyle say anything to you?
No, he was driving, everything was perfectly fine, and then all of a sudden just the rear end gave out on him.
Thanks very much.
So it's time for qualifying to continue. We're in Kangalassak, as you can see, and at the moment, positions, well, first it is the JBXE team, then it's, of course, Veloce with Abt Cupra, not setting a time, Excite Energy, no time for them either, and the Segi TV Chip Ganassi Racing team also not setting a time. 30 seconds on the clock, and I would say there's some opportunities to be had here.
Very much, very much. If you were a team who you're thinking, do you know what I suffered in that first qualifying session, and I think probably the likes of Rosberg Extreme Racing would be thinking that. They're going to be going last, of course. We haven't had a clean run. Even JBXE, they had a stop for 20 seconds on the way in, and Veloce had a problem as well. But this is Sebastian Loeb and Cristina Gutierrez for X44. They've been the top qualifiers at every event so far this season. And at the moment, they are in that top qualifying position after winning Q1 earlier on today. They're going to be hoping that they can get a clean run in here.
Yep, Sebastian Loeb in the car. Let's see what he can do around this unforgiving, I think it's now fair to say, Arctic racetrack.
It certainly caused people a few headaches, hasn't it? And I think people are starting to reassess how they approach this weekend. Oh, flat out, I want to win qualifying. We've been saying it a lot, haven't we, Jenny, about how do you manage the risk? What do you want to do? And certainly now when you're looking at the timing screen and going, hang on, I could get a P5 here really easily because of the people who've retired or had issues. Maybe even a P4. Suddenly you're looking at climbing a long way up that table without taking any risk whatsoever. And as we say that, Loeb gets sideways. Steady on now, half a second back. He's coming up now to the section where we saw the issues this morning. Keeps the car straight. We're on the backwards view, which we saw a little while ago with Carl Leduc when he had his problem. Oh.
It's heart and mouth stuff, this. Remember, if you qualify first, you go through to semi-final 1. Also, 5th and 6th goes through to that semi-final. If you qualify 2nd, 3rd and 4th today, you go through to semi-final 2. And then 7th, 8th and 9th gets you through to the crazy race. And top 2 go through semi-final 1, top 2 semi-final 2. And the winner of the crazy race finds their way into the final 2.
Now, I was thinking, Jenny, that semi-final 2 was a bit of a tough gig because you've got your P2, 3 and 4 drivers. Therefore, it's going to be a very hard race. Because of the random nature of qualifying here, I don't actually think you can pick any of the races as an easier or a tougher race, because I think our quick teams are going to be spread throughout these. We've definitely got 6 teams here who are capable of winning pace. We've seen it with the various drivers out on track. It's just they're all struggling to get a run completely clean, completely together. Could be pretty fascinating.
It really could. You can see the sky, the clouds are very heavy above. We've had the threat of rain coming in, and you can just see there Loeb not managing to get into that rut, gets kicked to the left of it and takes in a little bit more shrubbery than he probably would have liked. We've seen a few people struggling with that. A little bit of sideways sort of movement of the car. Doesn't look very comfortable, and losing a little bit of time as well now. 2 seconds down.
I think Loeb doesn't need to worry too much, does he? Because at the minute he's up against JBXE, which is Kevin and Michaela, and they retired from Q1. So in some ways, his target time, I mean, he's going to have an eye on the others, isn't he? I'm trying to look at the results and see. I think they're almost a sure thing, Jenny, because
Don't say that.
No,
what are you doing?
Well,
Commentators curse or what?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Yeah, they won't be loving that. But I'm looking at the teams that are yet to come. So we've got Andretti United, who had a problem in Q1. Where were they? Yeah, they were P7. We've got Rosberg X Racing, who were P8. And we've got Acciona Sainz. So Acciona Sainz were P6. So you know what? All that Loeb and Gutierrez have got to do is get this car around safely. And if you were the team manager, you'd be looking at this and going, don't do anything stupid. Literally P3, P4 will be good enough for top qualifier.
Do you think Lewis is on the phone to them? He's finished qualifying and he's just saying, guys, just reel it in, it'll be fine.
I suspect Lewis has had a fairly busy afternoon with, it wasn't just a threat of rain in Spa, was it? So yeah, no. Lewis not with ExtremeE this weekend, as you can imagine. Hands somewhat tied, trying to have a little bit of a fight for pole in Spa.
Tell you what, though, he sent his good luck messages to Loeb and Gutierrez this weekend. He said he was very much missing them, would have loved to have been there, would have loved to have seen the work they've been doing with local schools, with the local community. And this weekend, a really sustainable weekend when it comes to ExtremeE, making this very first visit to Greenland of any motorsport.
I think it's fair to say Kevin Hansen's time, his first lap was really impressive, wasn't it? Considering that he didn't get his run this morning, Jenny. So he had the Ureki run, if you want to call it that, the free practice run yesterday. What did they do in free practice yesterday? He actually had a puncture, didn't he, towards the end of his run? Bit of dust, we're okay though. So yeah, Kevin had a big jump from Loeb. Kevin had a puncture in free practice. He didn't get his run this morning, but at the minute he is still a second up on the 9-time World Rally Champion Sebastian Loeb, who's had an extra event in the car compared to Kevin. So great job by Kevin for JBXE. As a team, they've got to try and focus on those positive things and say, right, we've made progress, we're going the right way, we're on the pace of the top teams, what can we do with the rest of the weekend? And with everything having been so topsy-turvy in terms of results, you almost can't count anyone out for a win.
Hyperdrive used there by Loeb as he went towards that gate and the little kicker jump across the riverbed, so nice time to use it. Windscreen wipers on. Doesn't look like it's raining at the moment, but sometimes we have seen the wipers being used. That really long, wide shot that shows exactly where they are racing for qualifying.
Now, Loeb at the minute, as I say, within half a second of Hansen. Remember, Hansen stopped just before the entry to the switch zone. So you can expect that gap to remain within a few seconds, I think, right the way up to the entrance to the switch zone. The second he crosses the entrance to the switch zone, I think he'll immediately take a lead in the region of around 20 seconds. He's fastest already, but you can see not by very much. But watch for that as an indicator as well of how much time Kevin Hansen lost sitting at a standstill on the way in.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I think that's low cloud just starting to threaten, and that could be another problem for the runners still to come. But we'll have to keep on watching the conditions. Live position, second at the moment, as you say, just undulating between those different positions and through this very difficult part, through the rock garden. I feel like just easing off a little bit, but that's why we've seen so much carnage there. So Sebastian Loeb navigates that safely through gate 29, then up the final slope, does a little kicker jump, up to gate 30. Yeah, you can see a little bit of the water that's accumulating on the windscreen, so there is a bit of precipitation around.
Look how quick Kevin was through the last sector. So Loeb was up on him with a couple of sectors to go and now 3 seconds down. But as he crosses into here, this will give you an idea of the time that Kevin lost. Here we go. Wait for it on the way into the switch zone, crosses the line. Well, okay, only says 10 there, which is interesting. We reckon Kevin got it started inside about 20, didn't we?
He really managed to restart that car very quickly compared to some of the people we've seen.
Actually, it would be 15, wouldn't it? Because Loeb was 3 seconds down, is now 12 seconds up. So 15 seconds lost, I reckon. So that's, yeah, certainly the quickest reset. Loeb in now, and they just need a clean lap now from Cristina Gutierrez. Just got to go out there, bring the car home, and it's top qualifier in the bag.
He said. But he's right, absolutely.
Just desperately,
I just don't
not
want you.
Cursing them. Yeah. Sorry already, sorry.
Cristina Gutierrez, a remarkable story to even be here in racing. As we've said before, she was involved in a big crash at the Kazakhstan rally. She did win the class, even with 2 fractured vertebrae. She's been recovering since then, but this is a real test for her body, mind and soul as she gets into the car. Let's hear if there's a little word. Conversation between the two of them. They'll be hoping for a relatively pain-free switch. Both of the sort of gull-wing doors on this Odyssey 21 are open as she's getting help from both sides to just try and get herself seated comfortably. She's got a little insert there. The buckle's done up on her seatbelt. You want them super, super tight so you're not moving around on this very rugged terrain. And that's a good job done for Loeb. Come on, don't speak in French.
I think it was it something to do with 5 points, wasn't it? I'm not quite sure. So, what will the briefing have been? Gutierrez got to get a job done. Loeb's done his bit.
I'm with X44, Sebastian Loeb. Sebastian, you're currently leading this qualifying session by 11 seconds. The car went wrong for a lot of teams. How did your car feel?
It was okay, but it was really rough and bumpy. I started the stage by knowing what happened to the others, so I tried to be safe in the tricky places, safe in the rocks, because I see a lot of punctures. So I tried really to do a clean lap without any risk, trying to push in sector 3 for the super sector, but everything went fine, so I hope Cristina will do a good job.
Thank you very much.
Fascinating there. So Loeb admitting that they did try to get the super sector, put in hyperdrive, tried to give it some welly.
It's actually one of the safest parts on the course. You know, we know it's rare. There's a couple of little drop-offs in there. It's not too savage. This section here has been a massive risk for everyone. And it just goes to show you that Loeb and co are looking at all of the footage. They're looking at all the teams going through here. Look how steadily they're taking it. That's where both Molly and Kyle Leduc had their huge moments. Well, Molly had a roll and Leduc nearly. Yeah, Gutierrez, they're 21 seconds up. There's absolutely no point here in them going full banzai. I don't think Gutierrez will go for the super sector. It's just a case of bring it home. It's the clever thing to do, isn't it? If you're the team, it's what Lewis would do.
It's what Loeb would do, and it's what Gutierrez is doing right now as well. Very sensible driving. 21 seconds in the lead at the moment. Be interesting to see if she uses her hyperdrive at the same point. I would imagine she will.
I think Loeb's the only person with more FIA World Championships than Lewis Hamilton, isn't he?
Yep. Well, at the moment.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing, isn't it? It is incredible, really, the dominance of those guys. It's cool, actually. I think it's a really cool synergy that Loeb drives for him. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
I
when
really
you saw the pairing when it was first announced, you were like,
well, who
oh.
else? Yeah, you can't sign somebody. You know, who am I going to sign? I've got 8 F1 titles. I think I'll sign a guy with 9 WRC titles. That makes sense.
It'll be really interesting, actually, to see who does want to come into this championship when it comes to season 2, because it's really appealing to a lot, and they'll be looking at this and thinking, this looks fun and this looks different, and this has got a cause that I really want to be part of.
I know there are a lot of drivers who are very keen to get themselves on that rookie test later on this year. The emails will have been flying in. I think applications close in a few days' time, not long after Greenland, and I'm sure there'll be some very interesting CVs dropping into ExtremeE's inbox, and then it's really a case of who the teams want to select from those CVs to come along and try the car.
Did you finish your CV, by the way?
No, I mean, I'll definitely ping an email in. Obviously, I imagine I'm a strong choice alongside the likes of Sebastian Loeb, you know, Johan Kristoffersen, Ekstrom, Coley.
I mean, you'd bring something to the team.
Maybe a bit of banter. I mean, there's some really talented young drivers out there, but also it's important to note that the rookie test isn't just for young drivers. Anybody who has not competed in ExtremeE can enter the rookie test. So there are some very good drivers out there, Jenny, at the minute who are somewhat underemployed and would be looking to do it. Yeah, Lewis maybe. Can Lewis sign up for his own squad?
Oh, could you imagine if
Why
he
not?
finishes...
I've seen him ride a MotoGP bike. I mean, we know he's a very capable guy. I've actually interviewed him once on a job when he was back with McLaren, and he said how much he enjoyed rally driving. He'd been blown away by the skills of a rally driver that he'd had a ride with somewhere. I mean, I'd love to see Lewis come and have a go. Then we've got to get Jensen in the car again.
I have a feeling that might not happen until F1 this season's finished.
Maybe.
But, you know, let the man concentrate on the job there. It's got some very stiff competition this season. And I tell you what, this will be stiff competition tomorrow. 5-car final, and Gutierrez out there just holding, really, maintaining that lead. Oh, as I say that, she just loses a little bit, but that's pretty decent.
Yeah, 14.3 seconds up at the minute. There's no need, really, to take any massive risks. And you can actually see what Loeb was saying about how rough it is up at the back section there. We knew the surface was very different here in terms of the amount of gravel there is. And I think Gutierrez, dropped another second here. They don't even have to win, Jenny. That's the thing. They don't even have to win, because the cars that are yet to come have already got one bad result from a previous session. They're probably going to be okay even if they don't. It's raining quite hard, but again, no problem.
I was going to say, she's not got her wipers on, and that's definitely down to the preference of the driver. Some people find it more annoying to have the wipers going. They'll happily just take a little bit of rain spots on their screen, and that's fine for them. Others just prefer it to be totally clean and have the wipers going, but you can then smudge, can't you?
It's a little bit like choosing wets when it's not quite wet enough. You know, if you put the wipers on, when it's pouring with rain, they work great, but if there's only a little bit of moisture, you can end up with a smeared screen and not such a clear vision. There we go. They're on now. I was going to say, actually, do you think they might be broken? But I'd say it's properly raining. Looking at those pictures, I think there's probably more rain in the valley than we've seen through the course of the rest of the weekend so far. Only 8 seconds up now. So this is a very similar approach to her teammate Sebastian Loeb, and it's the right approach.
Yeah, hyperdrive goes on. She's just going out there trying to keep a pretty safe, decent time. She knows what's ahead of them. Remember, this is the team that are qualified in top spot 2 out of 2. When it comes to the race, not as much luck. They're second in the championship behind the Rosberg team. But this weekend, they could really come together and do some decent work, I think. Get some really good points. And remember, 12 points on offer for whoever is the top of qualifying at the end of these sessions.
Well, they're going to be able to nick a few off RXR here, aren't they? Although they'll probably be a bit disappointed that RXR are going to have be in a great position here to recover somewhat. Where did they finish? They finished the first session in 8th, but thanks to the issues here, again, I reckon Johan and Molly will be looking at very different tactics than they thought they were. They're going last in this session, which I believe was to give the team a bit more time to repair the car. You know, you'd have been thinking, we're going to have to send it, we're going to have to really go for it, going to need a top time. And now they're probably looking at it and going, you know what, steady as we go, we're going to go P1, P2 and get ourselves up to 4th in qualifying.
Oh, Christine just going through there, and you're just watching her thinking, please be careful, because it's so aggressive. Those rocks are so large. It's like driving on the moon. They're so big.
3 minutes.
So the voice of Scott Elkin there just in the background, but it's the fastest time of the day for Sebastian Loeb and Cristina Gutierrez, setting the pace and just setting the screens alight. Great to watch them.
Yeah, at the moment, look, on the right-hand side, you can see 2 wins in qualifying with 3 cars still to go. I think that's the top qualifier spot sewn up for them. Andretti United getting prepped. Timmy Hansen on the left-hand side of your screen. That means Katie Munnings is in the car, as we expected.
Yeah, worth saying that the drivers have to rotate. Whoever's in there for session 1 flips over for session 2, and then the same tomorrow. Whoever starts in the semi-finals, then they alternate with whoever goes into the final. So it's a clear sight of who will start the final. That'll be Katie's role tomorrow. But right now, she's looking at qualifying and what they can do.
So Timmy Hansen and Katie Munnings for Andretti United ExtremeE. The co-owner, look, Michael Andretti and Zach Brown. And we had a chat yesterday with Katie's mum and dad, Chris and Tracy, FaceTime them during practice. Yeah, and I said, how are you doing? And they said, oh, it's just awful being at home. It's absolutely awful. We then gave a call to Susan Hansen, Timmy's mum, and she said, oh, God, I can't stand being at home. They want to be able to watch every session. We're really lucky. We can see the whole of free practice here. And I think they were quite pleased to be able to know that their children were doing a great job. And I'm sure they'll also be over the moon that, of course, Katie and Timmy are the first 2 drivers to be confirmed for 2022. Andretti has signed them back up, ready for another season of action.
30 seconds.
Worth noting as well that McLaren are coming into this championship next year, and they've announced their male driver is Tanner Faust. If you haven't come across him, World Rallycross man, also Top Gear America, is that right?
He was Top Gear America presenter, he was indeed.
15 seconds.
Worked with him, really nice guy, exciting, he'll be very dynamic.
Oh, he's brilliant. Tanner's brilliant. Background in drifting, rallying, rally cross. He is very, very versatile indeed. I think it's a great signing by them. Hansen and Munnings for Andretti United heading out for Q2. They were P7 after the first session. They're hoping now for a good run here. Gain them some points back for both the championship and in qualifying. How far up the qualifying order can they get? What sort of risk are they going to take here? Really, it's only X44 that have had a clean run, and it was pretty clear that X44 took it fairly easy, Jenny. So I think here Munnings and Hansen could go to the top of the table, but also they don't need that risk to get a good qualifying result. So it really is about what the team have decided the strategy for attack should be.
Yeah, they'll have seen the damage that's been inflicted on some of these cars. At the moment, they're in position 5, but as we go round, we'll see what they can do. I think it is steady Eddie, isn't it? You've got to go out there. You can't be reckless on this. This course is just too difficult for that at points. So she's going to tackle these 2 big bumps where you've got to get it right. You've got to line the car up. She actually bounced fairly unkindly there.
Yeah, and you can see the look on her face, and then it's a bit of relief afterwards. Yeah, I'm glad I'm through that section. I imagine the relief on her parents' face at the home will be the same, and Timmy Hansen too. There's Katie. You don't realise as well, actually, Jenny, how much they're climbing already by this point. They're already on a climb up towards the hillside. Now they're going to drop back down again to the valley floor before they go hairpin left and into the second narrow section.
Yes, there's some exciting and very interesting parts on this track. I think it's been designed brilliantly. I know the guys have been out there working very hard on it, and it just goes to show that, yeah, it's difficult, yeah, it's challenging, and you have to nurse the cars round, but my word, they've done an impressive, job of designing it.
Absolutely, yeah. Timo Scheiner went on the recce earlier on this year. Tamara Molinaro is out there as well. We spoke to her earlier on. James Taylor and Guy Nichols as well from the organisation side, and I'm sure planning a track like this is, well, I'll be honest with you, Jenny, I'm sure it's great fun.
Yeah,
going out
I love
doing
it.
a recce in a load of off-road cars sounds like a gig that we could get into, doesn't it? I mean, maybe they need the input of the commentators for the course. But
are you not enjoying your commentary role? Because at the moment you're trying to sell yourself into every other role.
Look, honestly, it's only the driving, Jenny. If I win the lottery, I'll be gone tomorrow. I'll be P10, but that's absolutely fine. You know, as long as you're having fun. I'm sure you'll be okay.
I'll get through it somehow. Just like Katie Munnings is getting through this session as well. She's digging in. She knows the job. She knows the task at hand. She goes past that lake, a little bit messy there, but a little bit ragged.
Look, she's only 11 seconds down on a 9-time World Rally champion. This is exactly what they need to do. I expect Timmy will be slightly quicker, as he was earlier on today. He was fastest in the super sector. You could actually argue Timmy Hansen is the form man. You know, we saw several people trying really hard in there. They were just unlucky that it didn't quite work out this morning. So, yeah, Let's see what they can do. But it is definitely low risk. I think it's going to be low risk for everybody yet to come. Sainz is probably the only team who could really benefit from a big push, because they had a half-decent result this morning, and another good result could see them go up as high as P2.
Yeah, that would be great. Drone just flying, capturing the images as the Andretti United car goes round. They'll make their way towards turn 16. Very different surface now. Just saw Katie come down and put her hand just down. It looked near the brake, but we'll see how she's doing. She looks like she's all right. Anyway, she comes towards the ice sheet. The Russell Glacier will be in the background as she takes the turnaround 16. That chicane to start navigating her way back through this bouncy, rough riverbed surface, with the stones flying up everywhere, and Katie very committed at this section. Yeah, in sectors where when the light goes green at the bottom of the screen, that means that Katie is gaining on the leading time. So that's gaining on the time of Sebastian Loeb. I can't highlight that enough. So Katie is a rally driver herself. That's her background, is in rally driving, but obviously not someone with the experience that Sebastian Loeb has got. So this is a great job by her. She did a great job earlier as well, because Timmy, of course, had come in. They'd had their problems. He'd won the super sector. Then the car, unfortunately, stopped on the way in, and they said, team said to her, just get it round. But she got it round without losing any time, but also without taking any risks, and that's really difficult to do. Do you know what? I've just worked it out. She was looking down towards the brake, and I was wondering what she was trying to do. I think she was actually looking for the windscreen wiper button, because they don't use them very often. They certainly didn't use them in Saudi Arabia or Senegal, funnily enough, the dry, arid desert. But these conditions very different, a lot colder, around 7 degrees centigrade. We've got the chance of rain tomorrow as well as rain this afternoon. So it's going to be really tough for these drivers. You've got 5 cars for the first time in the final as well. So going out there, oh, that was an unlucky little bounce
little
up.
Kick from the rear. We've not seen that before, have we? So I think that's, again, what Sebastian said earlier on. Sebastian Loeb said it's getting really rough out there. I guess the difference is going to be the approach tomorrow when you are with other cars. You won't get to choose your pace and your level of risk, because it will be quite simply, do you want to make the final? Do you want to win? People are going to have to take risks tomorrow to get the big points, and I think they will. Now, I know you have not driven in the Arctic. No. But I wanted to ask you, because motorsport's never been there before, I wanted to ask you, you get snow blind when you're out skiing or whatever, and you just see white in front of you, you can't really tell the definition. Would you get the same thing in a car like this, in this section where you can't tell what's coming up, the definition is poor? The hardest thing when you're going flat out across a plane like this is picking out where there might be, say, a big bump or a big dip. And that's why you saw Ekstrom earlier on, particularly in these low light levels, wearing the orange visor, which you would wear on snow as well, to get all Katie gets a bit sideways. You can see there, that's just one of those things where you just get a little kick from the back. Obviously, they've got the advantage here, unlike if you're doing, say, a rally raid where you've not seen the road at all until your first pass. They have been through it, so they'll have a rough idea of where those risks are. Other than that, Jenny, it's about reading the grip level. So looking at it, going, do I want to hit that rock or not from a puncture point of view? And then here it's gravel. Is it dirt? Is it mud? Is it sand? And you can read those grip levels by the colour of the road quite often. Okay, interesting. Right, over the rock garden, we've seen so many incidents there. Yeah, quick under that. And you always said that the second driver can give it a bit more risk and they can really welly it around there and see what they can do. But Munnings, first driver out, wasn't sparing the horses. Off she goes. She'll go into the switch zone now. Didn't think she used a hyperdrive in that section. We may have. Sometimes it doesn't trigger our graphics. It depends where, you know, it can be a little bit out of signal out on the course. You'd think she would have done. We didn't hear it, because you normally hear it in terms, not just our noise that we trigger when they do it, but you normally hear the difference in the tone of the car when there's more power. Didn't see it sit up. I know that the Sainz team had a problem with theirs on the Leia Sands run and couldn't use it. So I just wonder if there was an issue with her getting onto hyperdrive. This section here must be so very strange for the drivers. You've come in, you're full of adrenaline, you've been absolutely sending it everywhere.
There's some rocks in the middle of the line on the narrow section, she said. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so there we go. So that's great. That's come back from Katie straight away. So that's where rocks have been dragged out, sometimes from the side of the road. So they're saying to Timmy to look out for it, basically. But yeah, you're coming in suddenly, you're doing 30 kilometres an hour. You're all relieved because you've got the job done. You're handing over to your teammate. It's a real emotional roller coaster. And these weekends where you stop, start, they're exhausting, because you go to a massive adrenaline high and then you come back down again to, you know, day to day to day to then an adrenaline high. And it's another reason why you need good fitness. You end up shattered in no time at all. Katie just getting out of the car in the switch zone.
Timmy getting in, and I tell you, they are all sleeping on the St. Helena. That's their floating home this weekend, and a lot of them having some quite disturbed sleep, which hasn't helped.
Well, it's also, what's also interesting is they've stuck with British time. So they're all having breakfast at 4:30 in the morning, and that's because the event is time shifted in Greenland. Greenland's actually 3 hours behind Europe, but to hit the TV window in Europe, which is the one they're most keen to hit, they're all operating on a quite early day. So the sessions over there are a lot earlier than they are for us. So they're all getting up at 4:30 in the morning.
It's what we do in Singapore for Formula One as well. It's the weirdest experience, but at least they're on the St. Helena, which means that there's no one coming to knock on their door and clean it at, when you've just gone to bed. Yeah.
I'm with Andretti United's Katie Munnings. Katie, having seen your opponent's previous problems in this qualifying round, did it change your approach? Because whatever you did, it worked.
Yeah, massively. I mean, we didn't have an easy quali one. Obviously, we stopped some tracks, so we lost some time, so we were down in the point system. But yeah, I think every car, apart from X14 that went before us, had issues. So yeah, I mean, our strategy completely changed. Just play it easy. It's a really challenging track, lots is going on. Everyone seems to be running into different issues, so we decided, you know, make sure that we do our best to bring it back. And I mean, the track is getting destroyed now. It's so rough, loads of rocks in the line. So yeah, it just wasn't about pushing on this one.
But you personally dealt with it so well. That was a phenomenal lap. You must be proud.
I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of survival in that car when you're kind of going over those bumps. It's a lot of fun. And with the ruts in there, it's no mean feat. So I'm happy to be round and just hope Timmy has a clean lap too.
Thank you.
Well, Timmy's going well so far. They started 30 seconds down. He's already back to 20 seconds down. So he's gained 10 seconds in these first few sectors. But there is a long, long way to go. And as Katie said, really, it's all about just making sure they get it round. Really interesting how rough it is. I'm keen to see in this narrow section, Jenny, if we can spot any of those areas where she said there are rocks being dragged out. Yes, there. Middle of the road there on top of that crest.
Did a very good job of highlighting that. Very nicely. And the time they're looking to try and beat at the moment is at 14:37.598, so just over 14.5 minutes. That's what they want to be under, and they're catching at the moment. That's the green sign that you can see at the bottom of your screen.
I think Hansen could potentially do this, because to me, Gutierrez took it pretty easily, because, you know, Loeb had already done a good first lap. She knew that. The team will have told her, just bring it home. So Hansen now can push a little bit. It's whether or not it's necessary. They're not going to beat X44 in terms of qualifying. They had a P8 in the first session, but it's not about that. It's about how many other teams can they beat. Remember, they're going to get championship points for how far up the order they finish here. They could eat into the lead of some of the others. There you can see what would it... I'm going to call it the sump guard. There's actually no sump under there, of course, because this is an electric vehicle, and that's one of the things which is an advantage with the rocks in the road, is you don't have to worry quite so much about ripping the sump off the bottom of the engine. Some of the things that you would with a standard internal combustion rally car. They all have sump guards under them anyway, but there are more things slightly lower to the ground which are a bit more susceptible to damage. It's more probably transmission, drive shafts and suspension that they're keen not to rip bits off. We did see earlier on, of course, JBXE lost a steering arm in the rock garden, so it is still very much possible with the debris that's in the road.
Yeah, Timmy, a little bit ragged, a little bit loose around that section, but clearly going out there and giving it full beans and catching once again as they come down this hilly section and then towards the gravel part of this track, taking the left-hand lane. You can see the left is definitely the way to go now. All of the teams pretty much going to the left of that little bushel.
Timmy dropped out the ruts there as well, so there's a very defined set of ruts coming down the hill, and he went slightly to the right of that and gave himself just a little bit more room. 17.82 seconds back now. They've still got, well, I would say half a lap to go, but this half of the lap is much faster. So I think 17 seconds is quite a tall ask, but let's see when we get down to the braking zone here. And he goes, when he goes through the next waypoint, you'll get another update on that timing. So, yeah, only half a second. So he is gaining, but how, you know, Gutierrez was pretty careful on this second half of the lap. Still all to play for here.
Yeah, the weather conditions are a little bit different now. You can see windscreen wipers on for Timmy, getting some decent air as well. Lovely jumps. I'd still like to see those all scored. I'd like us to be able to have little cards that you hold up and go 10 or 7.
I'm up for that. I'm up for that. We'll have a button that we push here to score it. Let's do it.
That would be amazing. If the producer's listening, let's do that. 18, lovely jump down with the glacier behind. The reason we're here, of course, with ExtremeE, trying to change things to every place that we go to.
He's gained a lot of time there, Jenny, as well. It's down now the gap to under 14 seconds. So 3 seconds gained in just that last little section here. This is one of the areas that I think could definitely get wet. You can see standing water on the left. That's if we had heavy rain, and there is a chance of that tomorrow. Different line from Hansen again. Look, comes up on the crest. That's less broken up than the other side where everyone's been breaking at the end of that super sector. So he's picking out some different lines here. It's a bit like a karter or an F1 driver in the wet, looking for grip in wet conditions off the standard line. Here, you're doing the rally thing of going, okay, where can I pick a line where the road is in slightly better condition? 9.82, he's absolutely killing it. Hansen's aiming for that top spot here. Big push now. Come on, Timmy.
Yep, he's got to keep this together. You can see there, the car slowing slightly for this big jump, and this is where we'd expect him to deploy that hyperdrive. Yep, you can see it has gone into that. So a nice delivery of pace, which should boost him a little bit closer. He's trying to hunt down at the moment the second place car. That is the JBXE team. And then in first place, it's X44. So what can the Andretti United team do? What can Timmy Hansen do?
I wonder if he'll risk it on the rock garden at the end. I think he should. I think he should. 7.7 seconds back now. Not a lot to lose. Surely you'll be able to drop. Mind you, then look at what happened to Carl Leduc. If you pull the whole rear corner off the car, you definitely won't make it to the finish line. It's a big difference between that and what happened to Michaela Kottulinsky.
Note to self, don't do that when driving car.
I know, but this is the thing, isn't it? He won't know probably just how close he is unless the team are on the radio, and they may well be from the command centre. There you can see the finish line now. 7.93. Let's get another update as he comes through this. 6.38.
Oh, this is closing all the time. This is the trickiest section. How difficult will he make it for himself through the rock garden? These huge boulders that the Veloce 21 has to go over. You can see it absorbing the big hits. There's some rocks flying up, but he did that nicely. 5.6
seconds down now. I think they're just going to be out of reach. X44. Hansen might fly this last jump. He can afford to take some risks on the run to the line now. 4.73. What's the update as he comes through? 4.0. They're going to get P2 over the line. 3.96 seconds down. Great job there by Andretti United. And where does that put them over on the right-hand side? It puts them up into P4. So up into P4 at the moment, which would put them into the second semi-final with just 2 cars left to run. That was a great drive by Munnings and Hansen. They did the right thing. They looked at the issues the other teams had, and they nailed what they needed to do.
Yeah, really good stuff from them. Congratulations. Brilliant run. And this is now shaping up nicely. You can see the weather closing in, though. Doesn't look like the most perfect day to go out and sunbathe.
7 degrees C, it definitely doesn't. There is Katie back in the command centre. They're looking down at some of the data, probably on the timing screens as well there. They'll have the TV feed as well, the same thing that you guys are seeing at home. It's the only way they can see the course. It's 8.6 kilometres spread over a large area here in Greenland, so they follow using the same footage as we do. Now they can breathe a bit of a sigh of relief and get themselves reset, ready for tomorrow. There are just 2 teams left to go in this second qualifying session from Greenland for ExtremeE.
So the X44 car, we are on board with Sebastian Loeb as he took the start and wanted to try and impress. We've had a lot of issues, but for Loeb, for Gutierrez and for this X44 Lewis Hamilton team, you can see the class just oozing off as the car jumps. A frisky little beast it is out there.
Yeah, safe run by Loeb and Gutierrez. They knew already, having won Q1, that they didn't need to do anything too wild, as we say that, backing it into the rock garden there. Still looking pretty wild. But yeah, Loeb coming in with a great time on lap 1, handing over to Gutierrez at the switch zone here. And Gutierrez knew all she got to do is get it round, and they were going to be in that top qualifier spot. The cars that were yet to come had already had issues. So yeah, good, sensible tactics.
Yeah, Gutierrez doing a really sturdy job for that team. Having come back through injury, she just had to get it home nice and safely. That's exactly what she did. You can see the sand flinging up as she took a slightly different line there, a little bit of the vegetation and the scenic route as well. Nice and steady, coming down onto the gravel part of the track and through the riverbed. Stones flying up, sand flying up as she swings it around. Beautiful turn.
Yeah, great shots there, seeing the gravel really getting fired out from the rear end. At this point, 5 seconds up. losing a little bit of time during the course of that second lap. We could see that gap coming down. They started with a healthy margin, but it's just what they needed to do, and you can see they're right up there at the top of the table with 2 wins at the moment. And I don't think they can be denied the top qualifier spot, but they may be denied the win in this session. But with the track as rough as it is, I'm not sure anyone's going to be willing to take the risk.
Yeah, Casey Munnings was up next for Andretti United ExtremeE, partnered by Timmy Hansen. They had a challenging, I think it's fair to say, first qualifying session. This went a lot more smoothly for them. The car actually cut out for Hansen last time out, so they suffered a big loss of time, so they were on the recovery mission. Yeah, you can see Katie at the start of the lap had a problem where we've seen lots of people having problems on that line. You just got to be so careful now. I think it's become so cut up. I'm inclined to think it might be worth a walk out there tonight for some of the teams and see if there is a really good alternate line, because tomorrow they're going to be racing through that section. So how much are you going to brake? Is there a different line you could take where you don't need to brake quite so much, or the jump is a little bit more predictable? But Munnings brought it home. They were around 30 seconds back at this point, but Katie had been up against the time of Sebastian Loeb, and then Timmy Hansen was taking over to try and chase down Loeb's teammate. Yeah, good job. Timmy Hansen in the car. He was the one that suffered the problem in the first section. No such thing this time out. Windscreen wipers on, rain coming down, but Timmy clearing a path through. You can see the back end swinging out. He's really enjoying it out there and setting a really decent time to mean that they are currently second in the standings in qualifying 2.
15 seconds.
15 seconds until the start of the next round, and it'll be Laia Sanz going out first. Carlos Sainz is the man in the command center, and you can see how focused she is, waiting for the lights to go green for her chance to take part in qualifying 2.
Laia Sanz off the line. Now, Laia lost some time, didn't she, on her lap last time out, we felt. We didn't find out from the team, did we, Jenny? You did. Well, their hyperdrive didn't work, which didn't enable them to go as fast as some of the other teams. We also had a switch zone mistake from Carlos Sainz. Just look how rough that first section is. Right up to the first gate, you could see the car was bucking around so much more. The characteristics of this course have changed massively. Yeah, completely. As you say, from morning yesterday when we first went out there with practice, this morning as well, ever evolving and very difficult challenge for this Sainz team to go out there and actually adapt to it. Once again, you're having to relearn things that you've already noted. They'll have been watching everything else, everyone else that's gone out there, and adapting as quickly as they can. This, the tricky section between 3 and 4. Can Laia master it? Got to keep it straight through here. You want the minimum steering inputs and let the car fly nice and straight over the top. But unfortunately, with the ruts developing, you can get fired at any angle through here. We saw it at Katie Munnings. Didn't look like she was trying particularly hard, yet she got a bad bounce and she ended up over to the side of the road. Laia Sanz has taken it steady through there. You can see the time's been lost. It doesn't matter. Yeah. They've already had a good run in the first session. They were P6. It's perfectly, well, certainly compared to what everyone else has had in this session, another good run here, and I think they could end up top 4. Yeah, it's just a case risk and reward. We say that so much in ExtremeE, but this is a championship which can really punish those who try to go too hard, who try to take on too much. And this is a very different track, as I keep saying, to the ones that we had in Saudi Arabia and in Senegal. They're being asked very different things, but you know, Laia Sanz comes in with a huge amount of experience when it comes to this terrain. Oh yeah, she'll be reading the road fantastically. You don't succeed on bikes without hurting yourself if you can't read the road. You know, she's an absolutely brilliant prospect for this series. You could see there as well, different line on the way into the hairpin. Jenny, we spoke about that earlier on today. Now I think they're using that different line to try to find a smoother way in on the brakes, get a bit later, and then she cut into the ruts at the last minute. There is no alternate line through here. You are stuck in those ruts, and it's a case of hanging on, hoping that the ruts guide the car roughly where you want. And here we've seen a number of cars run deep and off the side. Laia Sanz manages to keep it exactly where she wants it. Yeah, that looked really impressive, actually, from Laia. Just getting the car around that section, which is, as you say, being led round. She loses the back end a little bit at that section, just goes a little bit sideways in. But that's okay. It's so bumpy. That's the thing. I'm almost wondering if it's time for some setup changes to make the cars even better over the bumps. Compromise it maybe on some of the flat out sections on the plane over the other side, but for me it's the bumpy first section off the start where you might be making some of those passes to be in the lead. No one's going to pass you through here tomorrow when you're racing. for me, that first section of the track is critical. How quick can you go through there? Can you take the lead and then hold everybody off through the rest of the course? It'll be interesting to see who does what. And also tomorrow, where do you use your hyperdrive?
Yeah, where can you use it to really enable yourself to get ahead of competition, to jump somebody? There are, some people using it off the start line. We've seen that as a way of doing it.
Do you want to take the whole shot? That's the thing. If you want to take the whole shot, you may need it immediately. If not, you've got at least 2 places you can use it on the back of the course. I kind of hope we're going to see that tactical battle. We saw last time, didn't we, in Senegal? I think it was Kyle Leduc who saved his in case he needed it at the finish, straight to the finish line. He didn't. He made 2 great passes in the middle of the race anyway, because he's a weapon. But I would have liked to have seen if that had played out. He basically gave up the start, because without the supercharge off the start, the hyperdrive off the start, sorry, he couldn't take the lead. Yeah. But he knew that he had the pace and that he could sit behind them and take it at the end. He said earlier, $1 million question, where do we use it? Really looking forward to finding out.
So the Sainz team currently in 5th position. They'll try and claw some more pace back if they can. We saw Carlos Sainz going out earlier with a tremendous round, so he'll look to pick up from Leia and do the best he can. The car like a bucking bronco at the moment, just kicking at the back. This a big drop down at 18, just softly. No, she went pretty full in.
Yeah, that was pretty lit over there. She's 25 down at the minute. If you remember, it was Sebastian Loeb, remember, and Cristina Gutierrez is the target time. Loeb was out first. This is a similar gap at the minute that Katie Munnings came in with, and Timmy Hansen got back to within 4 seconds of X44. Now, you'd like to bet, wouldn't you, that Carlos Sainz will fancy his chances against Sebastian Loeb. They'll be doing battle in the Dakar against each other next year. There's a bit of bragging rights here as well. Is Sainz going to go fully lit here, or is he going to go, no, I need to take it steady? We'll see.
Whoopsie, that was a very close call. She almost went into the flag there. I think it was number 22. She just managed to navigate her way without taking it with her. We have seen some flag infringements so far. She's just holding on to that belt, just trying to tighten it up a little bit. Maybe she's feeling a little uncomfortable in the car at the moment. Not surprising.
Have we seen hyperdrive yet?
Nope.
You said, didn't you, they had an issue with it earlier on? Have they got an issue with it again?
Or are they going to use it
next? This should be where they use it if it's working.
The logo is there. It's the cross at the bottom. There we go.
The tone, it changes immediately. You can hear the RPM rise much more sharply on the motors on the car. That extra output from the battery just gives them a big boost of speed.
So super sector at the moment. Andretti United have got that under their belt. It's 5 points for the team that goes the fastest over the whole weekend. So it's not a done deal yet, but that's certainly good for Andretti United. They could definitely do with the extra 5 points. They're currently leading a little gaggle in the standings. They're 4th on 37 points. X-Sainz also have 37 points. This team, the Axionia Sainz team, 36 points and 35 for App Cupra. So really tight in the standings in that midfield section between 4th and 7th.
Yeah, even Veloce and Segic Ganassi are on 31 and 30. So, this is the midway point in the season, Jenny. We've been saying there's less racing after this than we will have had to this point. Really important to get a good result this weekend and just see if you can get yourself back into that championship fight. Remember, things haven't gone brilliantly for RXR so far during qualifying, and they have gone brilliantly for X44. So those 2 teams are pretty much out front their own. Laia Sanz is super slow through this section. That's a very cautious approach to that.
Really took her foot off the gas and just trundled through those rocks. She doesn't want any damage to that car, and I can understand the team having said, okay, that section, just slow it right down, treat it as maximum caution, and bring the car back nice and safely. And you can see it's getting quite dark out there in comparison to earlier on. The lights on the car starting to show up. The windscreen wipers going full beans to the line where she'll suddenly brake. Don't brake too hard. And then to 30 kilometers an hour. And she'll make a very slow way back. Uncomfortable on her right shoulder, I think. She's not particularly happy with the way that belt is.
It's tricky to get them absolutely bang on. They need to be so tight to hold you in the seat just how you want it. But you take a deep breath, you pull the belts down during the course of the run. I wouldn't say the belts loosen. Obviously, they're designed not to loosen, but everything does move around, particularly when you've got the hands device on. Carlos is using the different kind of head and neck safety device, which is a harness which goes around your chest. Trying to see what Laia is using. I think she's using a traditional hands device which comes over your shoulders like a carbon fiber halter, and that can be really tricky with the belts. There are some belts designed actually to hook onto them so that they don't come off the side. Now the changeover last time, Jenny, wasn't very good. Carlos came into the wrong switch zone and they just went over it. It took them 50 instead of 45, so into neutral, and now this has got to be nailed.
Yep, they don't want any more mistakes. They want this clean and clear.
So you can see as Leia gets out, you see she's got the standard hands device on. And there, Carlos has got the one on which is held on by straps across the top. You see it just across the back of his neck there. And there's less of the material coming down across your shoulder blades at the front. Harnesses are held up by the bungees either side.
It was a bit of a clunk to his head, I tell you, when he was coming into the car. He just misjudged it slightly. And these wings, I mean, Carlos has been very clear. He does not enjoy the switch process, particularly as they're finding it very challenging. As bigger and older drivers, he obviously would find it a bit of a challenge.
I would say, if ever you get the chance, if you know someone with a rally car, if you find one at a show, and just nicely ask somebody, could I climb into the car? Because you'll be really surprised how difficult they are to get into. And it's since these X diagonals, which you can see in the door, which is probably from mid-90s onwards, just makes it a bit harder to get in the car, but it makes the car a lot safer in a side impact. So
I hope they have this at like one of the shows, one of the car shows in the winter that lets people really get up close and meet it and try and get into it and have a look at just how big they are, because everybody has said they are beasts, and I think it's surprised even the most experienced of drivers what you can do, what you can get out of them. But Carlos Sainz, the experienced driver, I suppose, and he's out there giving it full beans. Let's hear it from his teammate.
I'm with Asiona Sainz's Leia Sanz. Leia, that was brilliant. You're right in the mix there for the semi-finals. Feeling positive?
Yeah, well, for one side, we are happy because the result will be not too bad today, but I think our driving can improve and also the car, so I think we are doing a good job, and let's improve a bit for tomorrow.
Brilliant, thank you. Good luck.
So Sainz, I think, at 38 seconds back, Jenny, is a little bit too far back, even if he chose to have a big push. I think to close it down, Hansen got within 4 seconds, didn't he, when I think they had a gap of 30-odd. He'd have to try very hard. You can't bet against El Matador, even at 59 years old. You know, this guy, that's many years' experience, isn't it, of going flat out.
You can't bet against him, but however, if you look at the way that they could qualify through, you've got to think, is it really that sensible to even push? You've got car 1 going through to semi-final 1. 2, 3 and 4 all go through to semi-final 2. So maybe actually you just hold position. You're fine. You don't need to try and catch the guys in front of you, because there are 2 people in front of you that you're going to have to try and beat to even get within sniffing distance of Loeb and Gutierrez. But yeah, I mean, they're drivers, they're racers, is what they do. I'm
looking, they were P6, but ahead of them, Abt Cupra, DNF, Segi TV Ganassi, DNF, Veloce had a problem, Excite, DNF. They could go as high as P2 here at the end of this session. They don't, as you said, and they don't necessarily need to have an incredible result to do so.
No, and remember, you do get championship points. So first, you'll get yourself 12 points. If you're second in this, always going down, an ever-decreasing number, they'll get them...
They were only 1 position ahead, don't forget, of Andretti, though, in the last session as well. So Andretti are just 1 place behind. So if they could beat the time of Andretti, then that would put them ahead of them in qualifying. So I don't know, maybe they will have one eye on that. On the other hand, maybe just go, no, you know what, we're in the semis, we're good.
It's so difficult to know what their drivers are going to do to predict and work out their reaction.
Look at the rocks, Jenny. Absolutely huge rocks been dragged out now. That was completely smooth this morning.
Yep. Extra challenges, extra obstacles, I suppose, for the drivers to tackle. This Acciona Sainz team were meant to be the last out on track. They won't be, because Rosberg X Racing still to go. They took a little bit more time to rebuild the bodywork after Molly Taylor had a big 360 roll when she was out on track this morning. If you haven't seen it yet, check out social media. You can replay it to your heart's content. It was a whopper, and she just carried on. Yeah, rolled over, didn't even stop. She had the car back in drive and away, literally didn't stop. I'm pretty confident the data will show the car didn't stop. 1 rollover, she was lucky it was on the sand, pulled a fair bit of the bodywork off, and if you looked at her when she rolled, she gritted her teeth, she realised immediately she'd landed on her wheels. Thanks very much, crack on, absolutely brilliant. But nothing less than we'd expect from Molly, to be honest. One of my favourite parts of the track now as they come through 17, a little bit of a flick up, and then 18, the big drop down. Oof. It's a big old hit, isn't it, through there? Love it, this is the big one. Taking a lot there. Yeah, nosed that in quite hard. So Sainz is feeling pretty comfortable with giving the car a bit of abuse. We have seen some teams really trying to look after it because of the issues that some of the other teams have had.
playing it a bit safe. I wouldn't say Carlos is playing it too safe, but he's also not eating into the time like we saw Timmy Hansen doing. Timmy, by this point, if you remember, was within 15 seconds, I think, of the car in front. So he did start a few seconds further back. He's only got, I mean, what were they, +4 Andretti, so they're only 19 seconds off the back of Andretti right now. I think they should, yeah, they should slot in somewhere around where Andretti are.
Hyperdrive on for Carlos Sainz. So potentially chasing 4th or 5th. Points-wise, that would be the difference of 3, actually. 4th place gets 15 points, 5th place 12 points.
See, I'll tell you what we haven't accounted for here is the DNFs are done in order of how far they got round the course. So at Cupra, despite the fact they didn't finish, they made it round the whole of the first lap, and the 3 other cars I don't think did. So at Cupra have actually got a better point score than we thought they had. Their DNF isn't as bad, and that sounds crazy, but that's the way it's done. In the same way that we had the 2 DNFs in the final in Senegal, the further up the track you are, you then get that position.
Absolutely. So the time coming down at the moment, losing a little bit of time. When they're chasing and actually gaining time, you can see that the number will go into green. And
he's not messing about here. Carlos was pushing through there, Jenny. That's a long, sweeping left-hander. One of the things that strikes me so much, having been involved in off-road motorsport as long as I have, is how much you can hear the gravel and the underside of the car. Obviously, we're dealing with electric vehicles here, and normally in a rally car or rally cross, rally raid, you're hearing a lot of engine and transmission noise, and in this week we get a fair bit of transmission noise, which you can hear the whining, but the abuse, listen to this. That gives you a great idea of just the amount of abuse these cars are getting. This is a really tough track.
You wouldn't want to be on your mobile phone trying to speak through that section, that's for sure. Right, Carlos Sainz comes towards the finishing line. Where is he going to be able to put this car? They're catching as they go through the finish. Laya did the job, and Carlos comes in P5. So, very admirable job. Let's see where he ends up then.
P6.
P6.
So they've gone 6th. They're just behind Andretti and Veloce.
Oof. Got your breath back.
Yeah, I think Sainz could potentially have gone 1 place higher, but still, it's a good run.
We've had so much incident. I think that you've got to nurse the car a little bit and get it back. You heard the voice there of our race director, Scott Elkins, and he's the man who calls the cars away. You also heard him say 1 minute, so not long. Don't go anywhere. Don't put the kettle on quite yet, because Rosberg X Racing are coming up. They are our championship leaders. 71 points on the board, 14 ahead of X44. They had a very, very difficult first qualifying round. I won't lie, they had one problem when they had Christopherson in the car.
30 seconds.
And then another problem with Molly as she rolled the car. So Molly back in there. You could see she's ready to go on the start line. Let's see what they can do. My word, they need a decent drive right now, don't they, Andrew?
They do, and the points are close. Andretti and Acciona Sainz are only just in front of them. I would
45
argue
seconds,
that it could be worth taking a risk here. They're in P8 anyway, so if it doesn't go according to plan, as we said earlier, nothing ventured, nothing gained. If you went flat out and you get right up there on the timesheets, they could again go up top into sort of P4 ahead of Sainz and Andretti. Then on the other end, they're probably going to end up in the same semi-final as them anyway. I don't know. It's so hard to tell. And of course, it's moving for the teams just as quickly as it is for us. So it's hard to make those tactical decisions. Away from the line, RXR into the final run for Q2.
Yep, they are off, and it's Molly Taylor at the wheel, the Australian, who had that big roll when she was competing this morning, but she just carried on, no problems for her, a bit of cosmetic damage. They had to rebuild a lot of the bodywork, and I think that's taken a little bit of time for them. That's why they're going last in the order, and Molly will have learned from before. Don't do it again, I think, is the idea.
They're not going to want to lose too many championship points either, Jenny. They're leading the championship at the minute, but they're going to lose some points here to X44. They can't beat X44. They're going to take the top qualifier spot. So it's about damage limitation. And actually, Molly here could smash in a brilliant time. Look at the last couple of times where we've seen them some 30 seconds off the pace of Loeb. We know Gutierrez went fairly steady on the second lap to look after the car. If Molly comes in close to that time, you cannot bet against Johan Kristoffersson trying to take the fastest time in this session. That would give them 9 points to go with their 2 from earlier, sticks them up on 11 points, and it will put them right up the leaderboard again and close that gap down to X44 in terms of not losing too many points.
Ironically, the better that Molly Taylor does on this round of it, the more that Kristoffersson is going to want to get in the car and not take it easy. He's going to want to ring it because he'll have seen that Molly's given him almost that kind of the permission to go out there and do it. And will he be able to fight his natural urge as a driver to just hammer it?
But if Molly does a good job too, let's say Molly comes in and goes, right, I'm going to drive at 80%. She's so fast. We know she's the class of the field. We absolutely know that. If she comes in at an 80% job looking after the car a little bit, there is a chance that she gives it to Johan and he doesn't have to try quite so hard as he would if she comes in 20, 30 seconds back. Struggling through this narrow section, Jenny, the track now is really cut up.
Yeah, rain coming down as well. You can just see it falling. The windscreen wipers on as well, just to add to the challenge that was already pretty difficult already. Oh, a little bit of the bodywork came off there. It just flew off, I think, the rear of the car. And yes, cosmetics shouldn't make too much of a difference, but that's what happens with a rush job.
Actually, a little shout out to the team. The car's looking mint, isn't it? Considering Molly rolled it earlier on. I think we haven't given them enough credit for the job they've done to basically return it to the condition it was in at the start of the weekend. And conversely, the mechanics will be hoping now that Molly and Johan return it to the paddock in this condition again.
They'll have to go around and pick up the bits of debris from the course and the track that they've had. You can see they've got sort of blanking bits on the car, and as you say, they've done a really good job. The lights were hanging off. It would look like Terminator gone wrong, didn't it, with bits of bodywork dangling all over the shop. And yeah, well done to the team. Small teams as well out here in Greenland. They're trying to reduce the footprint that they leave, so you're restricted to the numbers of crew that you are allowed out there.
Molly was attacking down the hill. I wouldn't be surprised to see the gap come down a little bit when we get to the next. It's actually gone up though, so maybe some time lost where she was struggling before on the narrow section. But she tried hard. She was late on the brakes as they came down to that left-right split. She went on the left-hand side, which is the straighter run. So you can be a bit later on the brakes. It doesn't matter if the car goes straight on.
I just wonder, the more of the rain that comes down, the thicker the sand gets, and it holds the car a little bit more. When it's light, and at least you can kind of almost skip over the top of it. But the harder that gets, then maybe it's acting against the car and just sucking it in a little bit.
It will make a bit of a difference, definitely, to the grip and to how claggy the sand or the mud is to what happens. I don't know that it's raining quite hard enough to make enough of a difference. I'll be honest, I'd really like heavy rain tomorrow. I know
of course you would.
All the cameramen who are out there will be like, oh, please, really? But we all know that heavy rain livens up a bit of motorsport, and I think this, as a location, is pretty likely. In the background there, the Russell Glacier. Really, honestly, it shouldn't be raining up here because it should be colder than it is, and that's one of the problems. But the problem right now is for the other teams, with Taylor gaining only 11 seconds back. If she brings this back this close, I think Johan's got to go for it.
Absolutely, I agree with you. He'll have no other option, and the urge is inside of him. He won't be able to fight those either. He'll be loving this. Molly, full commitment. She just loves driving these cars. She was on the official ExtremeE podcast the other day talking about it. She said it's a beast, but she is really, really finding this championship livening up.
So they've got 2 points at the minute. Look over on the right-hand side. If they were to take this session, they'd get 9 points. 9 plus the 2 gives them 11. But I think then if they beat Andretti and Veloce on time in this session, they could potentially go up to third. I'm not sure what the countback situation is, whether it's the best time in the first session or last. It might be the first, in which case they would end up down in fifth. But they've got to go for it.
So hyperdrive on, you can see the meltwater coming off the glacier in the background. Windscreen wipers also on. And Molly Taylor on for a great time here. Yes, she's chasing down. She's trying to find a way of just pulling back a little bit of time so she can hand over to Johan Kristoffersson in the best state possible. Look, green at the bottom. She is catching.
Another second off, down to 13.95. Bear in mind that both Sainz and Hansen were able to get pretty close to Loeb's time. Loeb and Gutierrez's time from X44 coming in with a 30-plus second deficit. This is on, but it is about, they've got to go for it. They're in P8. Why wouldn't you?
Obviously, why wouldn't you? Because there's so much on the line. There's so much on the line for these drivers. You don't want to give your mechanics another big job to try and fix overnight. They've busted a gut already. They've worked hard for you. Give them a nice night, just relaxing and chilling on the St. Helena. Don't make them rebuild a car as they go over the rock garden.
You could give them a nice night celebrating the fact that you managed to claw back a few championship points as well, you know. It's, well, we'll see, won't we? We haven't got long to find out. They're going to come in with a sub 15-second deficit. They'll be hoping. It's just tipped up over that now. Molly gunning it up towards the switch zone. There'll be one last split as she crosses over on the way in. And that will give us an idea then of what the deficit is. How late will she go on the brakes? How serious are they about closing this down? She's late on the brakes. That's the bumpy section. Rear of the car kicks up high in the air. Got to get it down to 30 kilometers an hour. Nicely done. 13.97. So they're currently in P3. 14 seconds the deficit. What do you reckon?
You know Johan.
I do,
well.
yes.
You know Johan Kristoffersson.
13 seconds behind.
What's he going to do?
Very good, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're going another few more.
That's a lot. I love
pushing
it.
him, goading him on,
I love
saying,
it.
come on, do a little bit more.
I've had a couple of WhatsApps off Johan this afternoon about what might be the tactic, about things like, you know, the super sector, and then it's like, do we try hard or not? Bit of banter, you know, while he's been watching out there. But now it's really interesting, isn't it, Jenny, what you said? Can he resist it? And look, he said 13 seconds, that's really good. And then the other guys, maybe a few more. So I think this is on. I think this is on.
Stops early. Just struggling to get the belts released. Remember, 45 seconds is the time that they have to stay in the pits. They can't go faster than that. Insert comes out, Johan in.
Yeah, now, bear in mind Molly there, when you saw her pulling the straps up, she's lengthening the shoulder straps there for Johan. Johan is absolutely massive. He's about 6'4". So she's taken her insert out. She's 2 inches taller than me. And you said I was tall yesterday, Jenny. I don't actually quite understand how he gets into the cars. I know it's been a bit of a squeeze for him in some of the different categories over the years.
Has he ever had to take the front of the racing shoe off?
No.
I know that people sometimes have to, because it rubs at the top.
Hasn't had to do that, but he will have. Those harnesses will have been just. Look at that. They're ready to go. He pulls the harness down. Now he's going to be looking for and away. So actually not so much time left as he hasn't got his comms plugged in. That's fine. He's got the belts in, but not the comms. Comms he can do on the way out. Can he get that in time? If he can't, well, yes, he can. And now they release the 3-time World Rallycross champion. What can he do?
I'm with RXR's Molly Taylor. Molly, brilliant second qualifying session. You've got to be feeling proud of that, considering how badly the first qualifying session went.
Yeah, I don't think, well, it wasn't a great start in Q1, so I'm just, to be honest, happy to have a clean lap. Didn't want to back off too much, but also wanted to, you know, make sure that it was a clean run. So, yeah, it was clean. You know, a few mistakes and things like that you can always improve, but I was just wanting to get one in the bank.
And the weather conditions are ever changing here in Greenland. It was sunny, but now it's raining. What can Johan expect out on track?
Yeah, so I mean, it's rain falling. There's not so much. So in the sandy sections, it's still yeah, pretty similar. Yeah, some of the rocky sections can get a bit shiny with the shiny rocks, but to be honest, it's more the degradation than the weather conditions. It's just it's nice to put the heated screen on and the wipers on and warm up inside the car.
Thank you so much.
Well, things definitely warming up here. What a terrific end to qualifying, and Johan Kristoffersson is really going for it. It's a really ragged course now. You can see the track just breaking up with stones being transported into the racing line. You've got to pick your line very carefully, very cleverly. And if there's anybody that can do that, it is Kristoffersson, and he starts to claw back at the time.
It was just over 10 seconds. Now it's just under 10. Through here, there isn't a lot to gain. I'd almost argue through here you can lose more. You might as well just keep this tidy, don't run wide, don't knock anything in terms of the geometry on the car. Wait and be patient on the throttle, which he does through there. And then it's about how much risk you want to take on those crests at the end. I think Johan can do this easily, but they do also have to think about looking after the car.
They really do, and this is really fighting against your instinct as a driver, because you know what you want to do. You want to go out there and blitz it, using the banking again just to help him turn the car into that. Going through the waypoint markers, past the lake. Looks like a lovely scenic place, but Johan won't be looking around. He'll just be eyes focused and forward.
They're going to want to lay down a marker here to the other teams. Finals time tomorrow. They've not been beaten in the racing so far. You know, they've won both rounds here. One, we've got to the finals. They've been beaten both times by X44. But at the minute, you know, this is Molly Taylor and Johan Kristoffersson going, do not count us out. We had a bad session. We said earlier on, didn't we, championships are won by what champions do in the bad sessions. Not always about how many wins. It's how did you drag back that bad weekend. This was looking like a bad weekend. It's now looking like it's going to be a win in Q2. The gap is down to 6 seconds. Pops a wheel up over the crest down at the bottom of the hill now, going to come through. What's the gap going to be as he comes down to 4.95, Jenny? This is on, it's on.
It's certainly on, and the pace is good from Kristoffersson. You can see him just looking at what he's got to do. He knows he's got a tight chicane here. It's turn 16 in front of the Russell Glacier. It's a beautiful shot, but Kristoffersson won't be looking at the Glacier. He'll be looking at what line he wants to take. He'll pinpoint in. He knows where his turn-in point is. He'll mark it, he'll turn it, and then he'll get the car away as quickly as possible. Not so much dust and dirt flicking up. It just goes to show that he took that gently, going for the smooth way of driving.
I think as well the dampness potentially will bring down some of the dust, which would be great for tomorrow, although if you get mud on your screen, you won't be able to see anything. The gap's down to 4 seconds now. I reckon, I think now down to 1.55, so that last sector then, 2.5 seconds taken out. It's not going to be long before this goes purple, and that will mean that they are on for the fastest time in Q2. That would be some redemption, and there it is, minus 0.45. The championship leaders are fighting back here.
This is a demonstration of how to drive ExtremeE style in the Arctic. Try saying that after a tongue twister of a day. This is XRX. Nico Rosberg not here today. He's collecting an award for environmentalism in Bonn, but he will be watching on and cheering on his team because they are doing a great job together.
He's going to be hoping that they're going to be collecting awards for going fastest, isn't he? Minus 2.78 now. Kristoffersson's got 3.65. It's roughly a second per sector. Whereabouts he's reaching down to the dash.
Hyperdrive?
Yeah, maybe. It just had a worrying... There it is, yeah. I thought it was a worrying glance for a second, but it wasn't. Now for the hyperdrive. Flat out across the bottom of the valley. You can see the meltwater from the glacier in the background. You can see the rain falling, and you can see full focus from a man who is used to winning, but that's a big jump. Huge jump from Kristoffersson. 6.38 now, risking it there.
Yeah, he really is. He's decided that his style is to go all out for this. The team were encouraging him, almost goading him into it, but look at the commitment, look at the pace, the speed, the beautiful backdrop. This is a beautiful performance from the pair who are leading the championship standings. Any wonder why?
So not able to take the super sector. It's still Timmy Hansen that leads that for Andretti United with his time from Q1. Minus 5.8. This is the long left-hander that we watched Carlos Sainz come through with a nice push on. I wonder if the team will be on the radio saying to him, maintain, maintain. You know, he doesn't necessarily need to push now, but this win, that extra point for just being one place further up, could see them a lot further up in terms of the championship, the qualifying and the championship points later on.
Yeah, the Rock Garden awaits. How hard will they go in?
Oh, that's how hard. We're going to take the camera out, have some of that.
I'm guessing there was no cameraman attached to that. I think it was just a remote camera, so we're okay. But we can replace that, that's fine. Stones flying up, the car full pace there. You can see he was putting all the energy into it. He doesn't care if there are rocks to go over. He is going flat out to the end of this. He is going to secure first place. You can see the timing coming down. He has eaten away at that. The challenge is incredible. The fastest time for qualifying two. Congratulations to Kristoffersson and Taylor. They have brought it home for Rosberg. So they get the points. You can see 17 for them, X44, Apt 11, RXR 11. That is your top three.
Well, that was some way, wasn't it, to finish qualifying. Absolutely brilliant performance from Taylor and Kristoffersson, 14.26.6. They win Q2 by 10 seconds from X44. X44 do hold on to that top qualifier spot, but that fight back from Taylor and Kristoffersson was epic.
Yep, so let's have a look at the combined classification points, and it shows that Loeb Gutierrez are in first place, 17 points. Then going into semi-final 2, Ekstrom and Kleinschmidt in the Apps, then RXR and Andretti United. Now, joining Loeb and Gutierrez in semi-final 1 will be the Sarazan team with Veloce and the Axona Sainz 2.
This is the points from qualification, so where they finish. These are actual championship points rather than qualifying points. P9 for Excite. Unfortunately, there were a few issues for a few teams during the course of today. It was fascinating for me is the way the semi-finals were played out. Semi-final 2 is very tough indeed tomorrow. Brilliant fight back by Kristoffersson and Taylor. They ended up with P3 in those standings by just 0.4 of a second on a countback, basically on the super sector. So Ekstrom beat Kristoffersson by 0.4 of a second from the first sector, the first qualifying session. That's why they ended up P3 when they were on equal points. Brilliant.
So it's the X44 team once again, our top qualifier. Let's go down and hear from them with Caroline de Moraes in Greenland.
I'm with X44's Cristina Gutierrez. Cristina, congratulations. You won both qualifying and 12 championship points. You must be feeling good.
Yes, the feeling is incredible now. The team, the work team was incredible. Seb did a very nice job, and for us is something take it easy in the track, because now it's totally destroyed. And it's easy to make mistakes. So for us, it's a good day.
Thank you.
Here is what's happening with the championship standings. Okay, semi-finals first of all. We've got Loeb and Gutierrez, Sarrazin, Gilmore, Sainz and Sands. To me, X44 are clear favourites, and we know that was kind of what was going to happen in semi-1. That's that huge advantage for being top qualifier. Look at semi-final 2.
Yucky, yuck, yuck. If you want it, 2 cars go through, 1 will be left out, and you have got big hitters. One of those is going to be very unlucky or unhappy at the end of semi-final 2.
Remember then this time that the crazy race, semi-final 3 if you want to call it that, I know we can't have that, then there is a route to the final from there. The winner of that race will go through. So all to play for tomorrow, but these guys unbeatable today.
Yeah, and what a job they did. Sebastian Loeb and Cristina Gutierrez. They showed exactly why the class qualifiers of this show. They absolutely bossed it out there, going over the rock garden, the most challenging point of this track. We've seen big problems, no problems for them. Make sure you come back. We have great semi-finals lined up and a 5-car final. You don't want to miss it. Don't go anywhere.